Do we don't have an intro
It's
song?
been playing. We're live, dude.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Hey,
Cheers.
everyone.
Good evening.
Hey.
I like this character on this can from this brewery called Brewery West here in San Pedro. It's dope.
What's that called? Pop Fuji.
So
the beer
David,
is called Pop Fuji.
Is that also some dry hop popped pop something? What's
It's a
going
pilsner.
on there?
It's a pilsner, and yes, it is a dry hop pilsner.
All right. So I have this beer from Valais, which is really tasty and nice, and it's, you just read it, right? It's extra premium.
And the top is on top of lager. It says triple dry hopped lager, and I was like, oh, I love when they dry hop beers.
So explain that to us. What is a dry hop beer, and what does this number say? Like 1.
IBU. Oh, the IBU number. That's the international bitter units. That's how bitter the beer is going to be. So 22 is really low.
Mm-hmm.
Like IPAs are like in the hundreds, like 150.
You can drink it like lemonade. It's so good.
Yeah.
So what is dry hopped?
So dry hop is when the beer is in the fermenting process, they drop a ton of hops in there to extract the hop flavor and the aroma instead of the bitterness.
Here he is.
Shit. He made it.
In the lounge.
What's up? What's up, dudes? Not in the lounge.
I see you're sitting in the first class lounge, Ali.
Say what?
You're sitting in the first class lounge.
No. I'm sitting by the gate.
What time are you bored?
In like 15 minutes.
And where you?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Hey,
Where's your beer? Where's your beer, dude? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, shit. I don't have time for a beer. How are you guys doing?
We're all good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
Very energetic.
for everyone
as
watching,
you can see.
yeah, for everyone watching, wondering why I'm wearing a mask, I'm at the airport and I'm flying to Mexico.
To the
So
land
there.
of the free.
Yep. I think
And the home of the brave.
I think you're heading towards our hometown or our roots.
Yeah,
Wait, you're going to where? You say
Getting-
you're going to Guadalajara, right?
I'm going to Guadalajara. Yeah, I have a show in Bar Americas tonight.
Nice.
Nice.
I love that club.
Nice
That's
club.
where David and I's both family comes from. So
Wow.
Yeah, I got
Oh,
family.
you're kidding? Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say hello to the fam.
Yeah. They'll be out there. Yeah, man.
So what's been up? How's the last week been for you guys?
Good. I'm slowly feeling better. I've just done a live set. So
Sick and
Another live set. Oh,
Yeah,
for horror.
for her, yeah, it was good.
Can people rewatch this?
Yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. So yeah, that was good. I still need to learn my way around it. It's a process of learning all the loops, learning all the stuff. Because I mean, otherwise you just I don't want to look at the computer. That's the whole idea with it.
oh, you did a live thing.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Do they when
So
you
this
do
is
the,
sort of
Oh, I was just saying when you do the horror live streams, are they live or are they recorded and they play them later?
They're live. It's completely live.
By the way, it's her, not
Her.
Yeah,
I
her.
don't know. I said
not whore.
here.
her.
Here.
Her.
But no, it's completely live, and it's in this tiny like kiosk in Kreuzberg in the Hassenheider, and it's good. But I mean, we literally arrived 5 minutes before I had to go on, set up, did it, and then you have to leave. You can't hang around, so it's
Right.
good.
Mm. So Matt, is this like kind of an extension of how you've been recording and arranging?
Yeah, it's
the
pretty much
studio lately?
exactly the same. And I think that this whole thing of this way of working has made me realize that I guess DJing with CDJs is actually quite limiting. And I know you and Chris both have used Traktor for years, and used controllers, and you've also used Ableton and everything, or lots of things within DJ performance. But yeah, this is the way I see myself kind of like going out and performing, because it's more me, and it's more true to what I'm into, and it gives me so much more flexibility to sort of bounce around, so yeah, it's a start. Who knows?
Much respect.
You
I think it's
can
always
always
an
do
interesting
both. You
approach.
Yeah, I could always do it.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
actually, I felt more relaxed actually going to do it this live than actually turning up and doing a DJ set.
And I mean, there's no
Wow.
other man who could do it like this, because you've literally, you're producing so many hits over the year, even over the past year. So if you put all that together in a 1 hour, like it's like,
Define hit.
like it's really, who else could do it like this? It's an immediately train that's marching forward.
And
So
now
good.
every time you play and everybody starts flooding the comments asking for track ID, you could just put Radio Slave.
Radio Slave.
I gotta say, Matt, both yours and Chris's remixes of Chris, your I can't remember the name of the song that was just released on part 3 of your Slow Burn Slow remix package. Oh yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
Thanks.
really, really moody. And Matt, yours is quite long, 13 minutes. Whoa.
Yeah, and he has an ambient version, so everybody check Beatport or wherever you want to check. It's all there.
The original was so great, but the parts. it was. I think I did that last April.
Mhm.
Pretty much, it wasn't long after Chris actually came to my house, and we had a beer. Literally, the week the whole world stopped, and we were sitting there. Chris was going, "You can't travel, you can't go, you can't do these gigs," and then literally a week after that, everything just stopped. So yeah. But yeah, it's been a long time coming, that remix. So no, it's good.
Yeah, we played
He
it a
didn't
lot.
want you
I
to
played
go
it a lot
'cause you-
on streams and everything. So I'm happy to
Yeah.
have it out now. And
Yeah.
Marco Farona actually
Chris, you
also
did-
did a mix.
Ah, nice. Chris, you didn't want Matt to go because you wanted him to stay and finish the remix for you, right?
When was that? When?
Or were you generally?
Oh no, I was
concerned about.
no. I was generally concerned, and I could see the future.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt, I got to say, for the ambient mix, thank you for putting that big kick kind of in the beginning as a reference point
I know.
for all
It helps, right?
all of us beat gritters.
That is smart, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen up, producers out there.
Yeah.
That's
We'll
good.
click
yeah.
click
If
or
you're making
something in there.
ambient music, yeah, put like a kick in the beginning so we can beat grit it.
Click. This little click.
Just to wake you up.
Click, a little clickety clack, a little
Clickety-clack.
janky noise, something.
Yeah.
One of those little like movie hammers, you know, timestamp thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised even with technology now that they still have to use that.
What?
They have
The-
digital
the,
ones
um,
now.
Oh, they're
They have digital ones now.
Yeah.
They're like
It's still-
LCD screens. They look more like iPads, but they just give a timestamp for the editors to go back and look at the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that's such an old school method to sync the audio with the video, and they still do that now. It's like, can't you just literally just drag something and
Yeah, but then again, so is MIDI, and we're still using it.
yeah, it's true. But isn't MIDI 2.0 coming out soon or something?
Who knows?
Oh, yeah, I thought I read something about that.
We should
Yeah, I
ask-
did too.
We
It's
should
supposed
ask
to be like
Dave.
way more channels. Yeah.
Yeah.
But MIDI works just fine. And
We should
it's the
ask
same
Dave
music.
Smith. In case
Yeah.
everybody, nobody knows Dave Smith out there, he's the inventor of MIDI
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
and of some of the most wonderful synthesizers in our electronic music world. Actually, I would even say, if you guys Google Dave Smith and sequential, I would say like the first electronic sounds that I've heard that really grabbed me was Prophet 5 used by John Carpenter
Yep.
in his movies. Like
Yeah.
the fog, boom, and that really like grabbed me. It's like, wow, what's that sound? This is amazing. And then years later, in 2014, I believe, I actually got to meet Dave Smith, and we became friends. Like him all. He's been with his wife at every movement party with a really nice bottle of tequila, standing at his booth and having a shot with everyone. Such a cool couple.
Yeah.
Dave, if you're hearing this.
Yeah.
we all miss
Denise,
you.
Dave and Denise. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave and Denise, and
I was
he
once
invented
in
MIDI,
Amsterdam
so
once.
we should ask him.
Yeah, I was having dinner. It was like an enter sake dinner in Amsterdam once, and I was sandwiched between Roger Lynn and Dave Smith.
Yes,
But I'd already met Dave, a bunch of times before that. That was pretty legendary.
for those who don't know, Roger Lynn
So-
developed like kind of the very first drum machine,
Drum machine, Lindrum.
the Lynn drum.
And together they produced a drum machine called the Tempest, and I actually did sound design for the presets for it.
Oh,
Full fucking circle here.
yeah. I didn't
Circle
realize
is
there was
complete.
he did the Lindrum with Dave Smith.
Yeah, because
Not the
all
Lindrum,
the drum samples built into the Tempest are all original Lindrum samples.
Oh wow, that's dope.
Yeah.
Do you have one? Have you got one?
Yeah, I do. It's pretty out of this world. It's like a polyphonic synth drum, sound designer. So it's a pretty interesting instrument. It's one of those things that I'd never sell because you can definitely tell in the future it's going to become a classic.
Right.
Future
Dope.
classic. So
So guys,
Oh,
how has the last year been for you guys? For those who have tuned in by now, have some people tuned in, Justin, by now? Yeah. Out of the off comes a yeah. We've said in our posts for this show that we have an announcement, and so we've been thinking a bit. What's going on, Ali? What's going on?
I'm just acting out what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I believe it's been a year now that we've been doing this show, and I don't believe that any of us ever got into this to be full-time talk show hosts for an online YouTube channel, but it's been an incredibly fun experience, and I think that it's been very it's been therapeutic for lack of better words for us to all kind of be here together. But the world's changing, and our lives are kind of getting back to normal on so many different levels, and there's all kinds of new dynamics being introduced into what we're doing. And I think we've kind of decided that I think we'll be taking a little bit of a break for a while.
Yeah.
And
It's not an April Fool's. I think people think that.
yeah, exactly. This is absolutely, for anybody who's watching this and thinks that we're putting on an April Fool's joke, I can guarantee you we're not. I think in order for us to kind of, I think sometimes to and fully appreciate something, you need to kind of step away from it from a while and kind of take a look at it from a distance.
Yeah.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
Well, I think, as Chris said, this is the end of season 1, and so stay tuned for season 2 or loads of reruns. Something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, every good show, every late night show has a break. You know, people need a break. We need a break. So that is the end of season 1 tonight. So it's not an April Fool's.
Yeah.
And now I've lost my plot. See, the last show, and I'm just like losing it.
I think we decided to kind of, you know, take a little bit of time off, regroup, and decide how and whether we're going to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if this would necessarily be the end forever or whatever, but I think that some time just to kind of get back to our lives on some level and regroup and figure out what we want to do in the future.
Yeah, as Mo said, we've been doing this for a little bit over a year now, every Thursday night, and which is like a lot of fun, super fun. We're hanging out with you guys, and we actually started to put the shows, to turn them into podcasts. So I guess you can already get the first show as a podcast, and we'll continue to upload those older shows as podcasts as well.
First episode isn't ready yet, but it will be soon, and then we'll be we'll be putting a few episodes out at a time, so then you can listen to all the original ones, and obviously they're still up on the YouTube channels, so you can watch those as well. So
yeah, we have a DJs and Beers YouTube channel, a DJs and Beers Instagram page, and obviously you should all go and check that out and find season 1 there. So I think that sounds
season 1.
Nice.
That sounds a bit better.
Season 1 of DJs and Beers.
Season 1 is over.
It's the last cliffhanger episode. And we sent Ali off to Mexico. Go away, Ali. Go away.
Mexico, God's blind spot. Doesn't see what goes on there.
Yeah.
So Ali, are you gonna leave us now, like in the last episode?
I'm gonna have to leave you guys early. I'm about to board, unfortunately. Yeah, it's been a hell of a year. We have, you know, we can take a trip down memory lane anytime we want via all the episodes we recorded, and pretty soon we'll have all the podcasts up to relive all those ups and downs. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in person at some point soon. I know I will, David and Mo, next month. Well, early May. And just everyone, thanks you for watching our little weekly gathering. We never expected anyone to watch, like Chris kept saying on all those early episodes.
Yeah. Is anyone watching? Is anyone still watching?
You guys have a great show.
Peace.
Ali, have a great gig tonight, and what a great metaphor that is, that you're actually walking into an airplane now, flying to a DJ gig.
Yeah, crazy.
Right.
Who'd have thought?
Off into the sunset.
Bye, guys.
Right into the sunset. Well, if we have lost Ali, maybe we should get Brian in and ask him what he thinks about all that.
Yeah.
Oh, I was listening. Hold on, let me see if I'm here. I am.
Yeah. Yes, welcome, Black Asteroid.
I heard everything.
Welcome, Black Asteroid, aka Brian Black, in his basement in Brooklyn.
Hello, everyone. Yes.
Hello, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see everyone. I've been trying to hide, and you guys, I guess I have a record coming out, so I have to like do things. But otherwise,
Have you been sitting in that basement for the past 12 months?
I've been here for 12 months.
Wow.
No, but it's been good. I think the first month was amazing. The time off, like I was reading books and like making music, and I thought, life was wonderful. And then like around the second month, it just got dark, and it was like, this might never end, and what am I going to do? And then I kind of forced myself to make music with that dark energy, do something with the experience. But it's been a wild year, but in the end, I think we're all the better for it somehow.
Yeah, that's one thing we were kind of touching on last week, is like, as shitty as the situation was, I think there was a little bit of good coming out of this, whether it's a personal thing or,
yeah,
I mean, well, obviously personal, I mean, it could be whatever, like some shit could be worse for somebody else, but there's a little, I don't know what they call it, like a small win for somebody, something. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be anything major. Like, hey, you got to read some books, like there was something like that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be this major thing.
Doesn't it kind of feel like sometimes like the world actually needed this, besides all the trauma that's happened? I mean, in terms of not necessarily the disease and the deaths, but in terms of actually just being able to slow down for most people and give it a stop and just rest, because things were getting out of control.
I thought the techno scene was getting out of control. It was turning into an EDM circus.
You almost make it sound like it's okay to eat bats alive or something like that.
No, not at all. And like I said, I mean, obviously I wouldn't wish any harm on anybody, but I think just the fact that we were given an opportunity that would have never ever in any other situation presented itself, for the world to fucking slow down and take into consideration everything that we take for granted on a daily basis, and reevaluate, our lives and how we go about things. Because when this is over, if it's over, and things ever do go back to the way it is, I absolutely guarantee the people who come through this will never, ever take things for granted for the same ways we used to. At least until 10 years, then they forget about this all and they go back to normal.
5 years.
10 weeks. 10 weeks.
10 weeks maybe. But yeah, there was certainly a good lesson learned from it. That's for sure.
Do you think anyone's actually had a chance to sort of slow down? I don't really know anyone who's really been chilling out, or it's actually it's been the opposite.
It was funny because all you heard was like, oh, I've watched all Netflix shows. That was like the running joke everywhere, like, oh, I've been binge watching everything. And I was always thinking, like, who has the time to do that? Like, in the first 6 months, I wasn't even on my couch in my living room once.
Yeah.
I remember you were saying how busy you were, because you were doing stuff that you couldn't do because you were always traveling. So now you're like, man, I can focus on my album. I can do remixes. You were like super happy about that.
I cleaned out my basement.
Yeah.
I moved to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like, my son's birthday is this Saturday. He's turning 4 years old. And when he was born 4 years ago, I was on tour. And I was constantly playing gigs and constantly traveling. And for the most part, I feel like I lost a significant part of his early years, the first 3 years. So this whole year, I've spent every single day with him and like being there with him every single day. And that would have never happened if this pandemic never, happened, for me to actually, be home all the time and be a part of his life and raise him. So that's certainly a good thing to take from this,
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Brian, you have 2 daughters as well. Like I have
do.
2 daughters.
Yeah.
Matt has a son and a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 2 daughters. Like, how was the year with them?
It's been amazing, because usually
you got to know your daughters.
Yeah, I remember their name now, and like, every weekend it breaks my heart. Every weekend, leaving on Thursday, coming back on Monday, and then and then going and doing it again. But it's good to have some quality time where you're with someone 24 hours, and it was good. I mean, I did a lot of weird. I found out my neighbor is a film director, so he got me to act in his film, and then we made a video. And the film that he made won Cannes Music Festival. I mean, the film festival just now. Mm-hmm. So like weird things happen that I would never done if I haven't gotten off that train, that nonstop Friday Monday thing. That you're in this machine, and you don't go outside of your comfort zone.
Wait,
And
wait,
when that, sorry,
you were acting in a movie that got a Cannes Golden Palm Award.
yeah. So what happened is, so if I had this new song, this new video we did for my new EP, which comes out tomorrow, and it turns out he was shooting a film at the same time. So he's like, "Hey, I want you to be in this film." It's like, okay, whatever. And it turns out it's like this amazing film, and it won the best mystery film at Cannes Film Festival.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
yeah, it's a really, I would, it's like he worked a lot with Chris Cunningham. He's from the UK, so it's got this really dark techno romantic feel to it. And then he directed my video, and you probably can see that online now, and it's really cool. So I got to dabble in film because I've always wanted to write for soundtracks and stuff, and that was the first time I had time to actually try things like that. So that was one of the highlights for me, being able to shift gears a little bit.
What kind of acting did you do in the film?
Oh, nothing serious. It's just more like small role. I'm like, my character is just like walking around Brooklyn and paranoid, like, which is basically me in real life.
You didn't do much acting then.
Yeah, exactly.
They just filmed you walking down the street.
So yeah, I haven't even seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to that. But you can see the video we made. We made a video in his basement during COVID. At the beginning of COVID, I made this banging techno record, and then everything shut down. And there was no real need to put out a banging techno record in April last year. So we made some videos, and then I had time to get some remixes and then work on my album. But now it felt right to put out some cathartic industrial techno again. It didn't feel right up until now, but now it's like people are getting the vaccine. People are a bit happier now. The sun's come out, and I feel like there's some sense of hope now. Mm-hmm. Some relief that like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So then I feel like now I can release music and not feel stupid about it, So,
but see, like I never really stopped putting out. I like Matt too. Like we just kept putting out club tracks regardless. Like at one point I felt like, oh, what's the point? But then after I'm like, you know what, man, I'm just gonna keep doing it. Like fuck it. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you guys feel that some of that were wasted? Do you guys feel that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess there's going to be when things reopen. I would hope that people are going to be digging back over the last year because there was so many great pieces of music or EPs or tracks released. So let's see. I mean, I guess a lot of people are going to be holding back as well. Maybe people are going to. There's going to be the market's going to be flooded. Maybe with more albums and stuff because people want to promote stuff as things reopen. But I don't know. I mean, there's so many great techno records over the last 30 years that you can play. I don't think you need to just play what's current.
People needed to have stuff to play for their live streams, man.
Real, dude.
I mean,
I didn't do that.
I didn't do very much dance music myself. I wrote a lot of music, but I kind of just colored outside the lines. I think I was just making music to cry myself to sleep to.
Right. Yeah, the live DJ stream thing. I just don't see myself standing on a kitchen table and in the kitchen. It's just not a nightclub. It's just not the same experience.
Well, you got to build yourself a nightclub then.
Yeah, like you did. I mean, I really enjoyed your streams actually. But I just couldn't see myself doing this. I switched gears and turned it. I just was writing because I didn't see an avenue to perform. But now I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm like, I'm gonna get rid of the laptop. I'm gonna rethink how I do things because I've just been so lost in this motion over the years, and now I've had time to rethink like what do I want to do with my sets and how do I want to present my sound. And so it's kind of good in that respect, but
were you ever like a DJ, or were you more just
Yeah,
live
I used to
performing?
play CDJs for years when I was doing when I was on DJ Hell's label, Gigolo, and doing Electroclash and this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I was DJing with Felix the House Cat and Tiga and all these people, and I was playing CDJs,
Okay.
CDs. And then with Motor, we decided to do live stuff, and then I got into Tractor. But I think I might go back to CDJs, USBs, whatever, just because I'm so tired of setting up a laptop at 4 a.m. with people drinking on the table in the booth. I mean, it's one thing if you're like Chris or Matt, where you have like a tour manager and you got like a nice booth, but like I'm showing up to these little clubs at 4 a.m. and the last thing I want to do is plug in these little high expensive, laptops and controllers. So I've decided to also prepare just playing on CDJs because it's just,
Man,
in some
you guys
situations, it just like put it in and just rock it out and then leave. Just in and out. You know what I mean?
And if you forget your USB stick, it's no big deal.
Man, you guys got to go play in a band. Setting the laptop is super fucking easy. Try setting up a drum set and your guitar amps and all that shit. That's a fucking pain in the ass.
That was the worst thing about that. The drums and the guitar amps, hauling the guitar amps into clubs. It's fucking.
You just break your back every time you did a gig, and people still do it today. And here we are as DJs, just oh man, I just want to bring my USB stick and just plug in and make twice as much money as a band ever does because I don't have to split it with anybody.
And, someone paid me to fly all the way to Italy and have amazing food, and I have to set up my Tractor. God damn.
No way. Where's my tour manager?
No, the next stage will be like, oh, it's bringing the USB stick.
Yes.
Pain in the ass.
I was going to ask you, does anybody know
just
like
stream this stuff all the time?
Like, I bet that's going to be the next thing.
Can a mixer or CDJ send a clock signal? Because I want to clock into modulars from a mixer or the CD deck. Can I send a clock?
With
you could.
With the Pioneer stuff, we have the Ethernet. I think from the Ethernet you can send clock.
Okay.
That's only to Pioneer devices, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think somebody actually, I saw a blip of this. Either it was like a Kickstarter campaign or something. I could be wrong. Maybe someone in the comments can fix it. But there was, I think, is somehow the CDJs can spit out a MIDI clock from whatever the master tempo is displaying, and then you can convert that to CV somehow.
Yeah,
MIDI to
there's
CV.
a way.
MIDI to CV, yeah.
Huh. Well, Brian, I want to get into your history of music and the whole Motor thing, and when we met.
Really?
And I'm actually really curious of how you guys, how the other guys met you, because you kind of in as an outsider in this whole techno thing. But let me tell you, I'm really, really happy that you're the last guest of our season 1 show. We really still need to work on a cliffhanger for later on, because I think from my end at least, I think we're really good friends over the years.
Yeah.
I have actually released a Motor album, which kind of was like, that was the time when we got to know each other a little bit more.
I think Matt did a remix of the Martin Gore single.
I did a remix. Yeah.
And that song we did, the Martin Gore single, went top 40 in 6 countries.
Wow.
On CLR. I mean, that's kind of I thought about that today. I was like, wow, we made a top 40 record, a techno record.
And that was like, what, 2011, was it? 2010?
10, I think.
10.
Yeah.
It was 10.
10, 10 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 10 years ago.
But when was it? When was it?
Think about it.
When was it when you had your first release on CLR? Was that like your
2011?
Was that your first ever like techno record?
Well, no, I made a techno record for Nova Mute in like 96 or 97 or something.
And
but not under Black Asteroid.
Under Motor.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
I released it years later, but I've been making techno since the late 90s. It just
I actually remixed that. You know that?
Yes, Sweatbox was one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That was a classic.
I just bad with names.
Yeah,
it's still fun to play. So much fun. That record. So where did you come from, Brian? I always, we never really spoke about this, but I always keep hearing you worked for Prince at Paisley Park.
I was from Minneapolis.
You grew up in Minneapolis?
I grew up
Tell
in
us.
Minneapolis, and I fell in love with Purple Rain when it came out, and I wanted to be a performer. Like, seeing Prince on stage, Darling Dicky and all that stuff. I thought, wow. So then I taught myself MIDI and sequencers and samplers, and then got myself a job at Paisley Park.
How did you get a job there?
Well, I should rewind.
I want to work here.
My first band was doing shows in Minneapolis. My first band is called Halo Black. It's like an industrial rock. It's like Nine Inch Nails. I was really into Nine Inch Nails. I still am. So my first band was like inspired by Nine Inch Nails. It was a live band with sequencers, samplers, drums, and I was like the singer and everything. And Prince asked his people to get local bands to play at the studio, Paisley Park Studios, for like a club series every Friday at the studio. And what he would do is he'd be hiding and like checking out the local talent. And after we did our show, they told me to stick around, and they're like, hey, we want, basically Prince wants to know if you are interested in working with the band as like a keyboard tech. Because you see, I had all my MIDI keyboards up on stage and all that stuff. And yeah, I did it, and that's
how can we how can I see this? Like, was there a special room which was kind of the club room of Paisley Park, and people were playing it? Was Prince hiding in a cupboard in the background somewhere? What was
he had like this little VIP booth hidden away, and he would just sit there and look at people, girls and bands, and yeah, and then they invited me to come back the next day, and I started working with the band, and my first job was to go back to all his old records on 2-inch tape and record all the sounds, all the samples that they couldn't perform live, and then map it out on MIDI keyboards, because Prince did everything live. There was no backing tape. Wow. And he wanted to recreate the songs as they were on, as much as possible. So he had like 2 keyboard players with just racks of MIDI keyboards, and I had to map out all the sounds on all these samplers, so they could trigger all these sounds which are on the record, which can't perform live. So that was basically my main job, and then I helped him a bit in the studio, and I got into some sound design, a lot of sample editing. When he would perform live, I would have to fix his keyboards. He has high heels, so he would walk on the keyboard, and he would break the keys, and I would have to swap out in the middle of the show, take the keyboard, swap out a new one, and then
wow.
And have to
sounds very Nine Inch Nails as well.
Yeah. So that was the whole Prince experience, and then I took that money I made there, and I made my own record, and I made 3 records with Halo Black, and I'm actually going to release one in a few months. I've kind of gone back to that period because I'm so fascinated by that industrial. It's a bit techno, but it's more of industrial rock sound.
Cool.
Yeah. So but I don't know. How did that lead to techno? Let's see. So then
how did that lead to Motor?
So I was doing industrial music, then I moved to London and continued it. And then we decided, my drummer and I decided to get rid of the guitars, get rid of the live drums, and just go inside the box and make electro. Because we heard Felix and we heard Tiga. We're like, this is awesome. We're gonna make Electro Clash, and we did. And then I signed to City Rockers. Damien.
Yeah,
Lazarus. Yeah, he signed me to his label, and then I became a writer with Felix, the House Cat. And then we did that. I did that for a few years and got bored and wanted to do something heavier. So then decided to do a techno record, but techno was so boring at the time. It was just like, what, 2002, 2003, 2004. I don't know if it was minimal, but it was so boring. When
minimal came.
Yeah. So I approached techno I came into techno making heavy, like, distorted techno. This is like before Justice and Boys Noise. So Motor was kind of the precursor of that sound. So that's what got me into Motor. It's like my industrial roots keep following me everywhere I go. No matter if I try to make a pop record, I have to put distortion on it and destroy it. And sometimes it works, but sometimes,
The first Motor record I heard was Clunk on Nova Mute. And at the time, I would occasionally play at an industrial club here in LA called Das Bunker, which you've played
Yes,
at as
John.
well.
Yeah, I play there.
And John would always book me to play techno, but
Yeah.
like, you know, all the goth kids wanted something a little different. So the Motor records were always perfect for me to like blend in between playing
Right.
like industrial and like proper industrial and techno together, and the crowd would go crazy every time I would drop, you know, any track off that album.
Cool. Yeah, those are fun times. Yeah, good times.
How did you end up to release on Nova Mute then? I mean, you're telling that story so effortlessly, but I mean, for Nova Mute was quite a label.
Oh yeah,
quite a label, but it was back then. It was quite kind of really huge.
I had my eyes on Mute records since I started making music. Obviously from Fad Gadget and Depeche Mode and all that. So I would walk over to the office and ask to speak to Seth, and eventually he took my call, whatever, and I was like, and then I went to his office and I played him some tracks, and I think it was like the first Motor demo, and he was like, "Yeah, I love it." And then I think Daniel came in. I saw Daniel on the second meeting, and then we decided to release a Motor EP on Nova Mute, the first releases, and then we did our first remix for Throbbing Gristle. It was a really cool remix, and then got into that whole Mute thing, and that led to Martin Gore playing Motor records. He became a fan of Motor, and then did a couple remixes for Depeche Mode as Motor, and then we got asked to do this tour, which is the most insane experience of my life, because we were opening for Depeche Mode on their European stadium tour.
Wow.
It was like all outdoor, like 80,000 capacity type venues.
Which tour was this?
This was the tour of the Sounds of the Universe. Sounds of the Universe. 2009.
Did you know the band before? I mean, did you know the band personally before you or did you get to know them on the tour then? You have a friendship with Martin, so
yeah.
Like how did that all come about?
Well, Martin asked me to remix the Precious, that song, really nice song.
Oh,
Precious.
I love that remix. You guys know that Motor remix of Precious? Oh,
I don't think I've heard that one.
Yeah,
it's so good. All-time classic.
And then became friends with Martin, and oddly Fletch. I always saw Fletch around London a lot. He's like a really misunderstood member of Depeche Mode. He's hilarious, but you wouldn't know it because he's so deadpan every time you see him. But he's hilarious, and we really had a good relationship with Fletch and Martin. And then we went on the tour. And
how was that tour? How was that like? How was the perception of the people when you were playing? How was the feeling? Like, well, I mean, Depeche Mode fans they're known for that they really wait. Like, they wait for the band to start, and they don't really care about any warm-up acts, right?
No, they usually throw bottles of piss at bands. Luckily, it didn't happen to me. Yeah. I heard horror stories, and to our credit, Martin would play a couple Motor songs as pre-show music. Yeah. So they knew a couple songs, so we started our set with the songs they knew. And I would prance around Dave's catwalk, and then so I kind of won.
Were you allowed to do that?
I just did it for one song. They didn't say I couldn't. And
nobody tells Brian what to do. He just does it.
So I kind of got the crowd on his side, but there was one show, I think it was in Hamburg, and they were like throwing coins at us and stuff. It was like Depeche Mode, and throwing things at us, and like, so, you know, there was only one time when like I was like, oh my God, get me the hell out of here. But that was Hamburg, I think.
Interesting.
But Brian, did you when you going back to the Prince thing? Were you actually on tour with Prince then?
No, at the time it was a weird period for him in the late '90s. He was struggling. He was kind of doing hip hop. He was kind of he's kind of poor. And he was just doing private shows at the studio, like almost nightly.
Wow.
And like, you know, Spike Jones would come over and Dallas Austin, and all these people would come over and just hang out, and he would do these shows until like 4 a.m, 4 or 5 hour for like 100 people.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Sometimes you say like, go into town, go into the nightclubs, and bring back some cute girls, bring back some people, and then they would have like a little show for like 100 people, and Prince would just play for hours and hours and hours, and that would go to like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I would get sent home. I had a pager at the time, and then like around 10, 11 a.m. I get paged, and like, Prince wants to rehearse, or Prince wants to go in the studio. It's like, okay. So it was like kind of my life for, I don't know, like 6 months or something. But I never got to go on any international tours with the band. That was like something I was really looking forward to. But there was a period when he wasn't doing that.
You said this was in the late 90s?
Yeah, 96, 97, I believe. Yeah.
What was he like as a person? Just like, was he just always work mode? Like that's it?
Yeah, but you know what? He was really nice. I mean, he was really, really nice to me. We always joked around, and he had no attitude. He was very approachable. He's very soft spoken. He'd like to play practical jokes on everyone. He was a lot of fun.
And I guess you got to hear a lot of then unreleased music from him.
Yes,
There's supposed to be like hundreds of albums, right? The unreleased.
Yes. I ended up collecting all that stuff, and I still have samples on that of like the drum loop from Erotic City.
Oh wow!
If you want it, I don't think I've got this stuff, and it was like it was really amazing to hear like the Lindrum, the loop.
Yeah, I mean, I think he used it. That was his sound, wasn't it? The Lindrum. That was his.
But he would have it hooked up to guitar pedals, and he would have each output going to a guitar pedal, and he would tune it down. He would tune down the drum sounds and distort stuff. And he was doing this like industrial stuff before anyone else. I mean, he was like a really, studio wizard, and he would kick everyone out of the studio, and he would do everything by himself if he wanted to. And the funny thing is, like, we would record like 3 or 4 songs, but he would start the tape and he'd play drums for 4 songs, like one song. Okay, go to the next song. And he had another beat going, next song.
Wow.
And then he'd go through and do the guitar on all 4 songs from start to finish, bass. And he would just do this lay down. Like, it's like he had all this music in his head and he could just record it verbatim in one go.
Wow.
Did he ever like write music, or was he just played whatever?
Yeah. I guess he was jamming in the studio, and he had like a little bedroom in his studio where he had like a little Mac, and he had like a little writer studio, and he would write up there. But yeah, it was quite intense.
It's amazing.
Great experience.
Yeah.
So, but heading back to you, when you were done with the Depeche Mode tour, your band was Motor.
Yes.
Was that actually helpful to being a warm-up act for Depeche Mode? Was that like, did that?
For me, maybe, I don't think it meant a lot of, I guess the sales kind of went up a bit. We got a bit more recognition, especially with the Depeche Mode fan base. But a lot of people say it's not worth it. But for me, it was worth it just for the experience. Just like that, going on tour, Depeche Mode, playing stadiums, it's like, that's priceless,
Yeah.
I get to see my favorite band play every night, so it was, that experience was great. Yeah.
What was your first like out of town or out of country gig? Was it with Depeche Mode, or was it separately?
When I was doing industrial music, I was just playing in the US, and it was, I guess, with a band called Ex Lover I had on Gigolo Records. We started playing internationally. I played Mayday Festival, and then I did like Mexico and stuff like that. We did some stuff, but it wasn't really until I got into Motor, and then Motor was just like, kind of had a couple years where we just played everywhere, every festival, everywhere. And,
but it seems like that you gradually were moving towards your sound of techno.
Yeah, that was
like Motor got more into techno, and then at some point you obviously decided to quit Motor or to finish it, and when, like, where was the step into the techno world? That's what I'm curious about. And how did you feel in that techno world, or how are you still feeling in that techno world? And what is that techno world, by the way, anyways? Maybe somebody can answer that question.
I I tell you what, it was a lot of fun. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. When I sent you my record, I had no idea your label was cool or it was good or whatever.
Oh, it wasn't.
I just knew you. I didn't know anyone in the techno. I just sent it to you. And I just went straight from band to the DJ club. And I was like, all I knew was just live energy, like just microphone and banging on things. So I was doing like this industrial techno thing probably 2 years. I think it was about 2 years too soon, because 3 years later, everyone was doing it. It was like Mord and Perk Tracks. It was like everybody was doing live industrial techno. But I was doing it at a time when no one really else was. So I had that learning curve for a year. And then I decided to try to translate that into a DJ set. And then I went into the 4-deck DJ set. And that's when I really found my groove, because I could play, it could be noisy and loud, or I could play deep. I could play Depeche Mode. And that's where I started really having fun, doing those 6-hour Berghain sets. And but it took me about a year to find my groove in techno, because I'm such an oddball, because I'm always doing my own thing, and sometimes it's like really cool and in fashion, and sometimes it's completely against the grain of everything else. But that's just who I am. I'm not trying to, jump on any bandwagons or anything. Like when everybody started playing 150 BPM techno 2 years ago, I didn't. And I probably would have got a lot more gigs if I just went up there and banged it out like everyone else was. But it's not what I wanted to play.
Yeah.
Huey.
Yeah.
When did you meet Chris, Brian? Or when and how did you meet him?
So he remixed Sweatbox on Nova Mute. And then we played a gig together at that club in Frankfurt.
When was Sweatbox? Was 2003? Is that possible?
Yes, it was around 2003. And then I remember Motor and Chris Leaving were playing at U803, whatever that club is in Frankfurt.
380.
U6311.
Yes.
11.
Yeah.
So we did a gig, and I met you backstage then. And then
I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Really?
I vaguely remember, speaking to you backstage. And then you did that remix for us. And then, it was years later when I had a demo, I sent it to you. But to answer your question, why did I go from Motor to doing techno? And it was
to doing basically Engine 1 as Black
Yes,
Asteroid.
Yes. Engine 1, if you can't hear it, it's basically Sweatbox. I'm always making this same kind of 16-note machine-like track, because that's what I really like about techno. I was always more the techno 4/4 guy, and my partner was more the electro, kind of fun and goofy and colorful. And that's why it worked so well together. But when we were doing Motor at the end, and we're touring with Steve Aoki, we're on Dim Mak, it kind of, I felt like it wasn't the direction I wanted to go. And we made that record with Martin Gore just because we had an opportunity to make a record with Martin Gore. So you got to do it. So you got to have vocals, and you got to do Gary Newman. You got to do all that stuff. So it made that kind of pop record, but I really wanted to go back into the 4/4 techno. And that's what happened. I did Engine 1 because I was just
and that essentially were our crossroads, because you did this album, which I found absolutely fantastic. I mean, there was Gary Newman on there,
Billy Ray Martin,
Douglas McCarthy, Martin Gore. Help me out.
Billy Ray Martin.
Billy Ray Martin, yeah.
Gary Newman.
Gary Newman, of course.
Which Mo remixed.
Yeah, which was Brian helped one of my biggest dreams come true with that one.
Yeah.
Just do something with Gary Newman in it.
So Brian, you basically came with this album, and I was listening to it, and I was like, oh my God, this is like completely outside my label spectrum.
Yeah.
But I totally love it, because we kind of share the same, let's say, musical history in a way.
Yeah.
Like we're coming from the same, like we love the same old stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
If we exchange some 80s tapes, we're probably like, oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
and I was just like, oh my God, this is great. I was constantly in techno, and I wanted to break out of techno a little bit, and you wanted to basically break into techno.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of like went this
Yeah.
way, like we met at the perfect time, and I then offered you to like, hey dude, I have no experience in releasing such an album. It's a fantastic album, but would you want to let me release it? And I remember we were sitting in Manhattan at
Yeah,
Dos Alaminos.
I remember that as well.
On West Houston Street.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I was like kind of like asking him that question. It's like, would you really like, can I sign that record and release it? Like, but I have no clue what I'm doing. And you were basically, go for it.
Yeah.
And I think it went actually in the end, it went quite well, didn't it?
Because, I mean, yeah, it went top 40. At least the single did.
The single did. You did a great video with Martin Gore together, which was extremely helpful to have. And I think
the remixes were really good.
Yeah, and it was a really good timing because we had some great remixers doing the club interpretations of those tracks.
Right.
That was an album, and it opened. It was really. I mean, it opened a million doors for me, Brian.
Yeah, because you ended up meeting Daniel after that, didn't you? Or
well, I met Daniel earlier already in 2002 when I played my first album to Nova Mute, which they declined. So let that be a lesson out there. If somebody tells you I don't want to release your music, just keep going. At some point, of course, somebody will. And I was always attracted, as you are. I was always attracted towards that thing, towards this kind of music and this kind of vibe that was created, especially around Mute Records. And it opened a million doors for me. And it was, I have to say, it was an amazing experience to release this album and turning it into more techno. And you basically sent me then the Engine One as a Black Asteroid track.
Yeah.
Some year later, I guess.
I wanted to make the biggest impact I could in techno because I felt like it was boring, and like I thought, what can I do to like just make a big statement? And that was it. Just like da 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 da. Because when you hear that in a club, it's like you just stop and you're like, what the hell is this shit? What's going on? Like, I wanted to have that record. I wanted to make a record that just stood out and just brought back the energy back into techno, in like the rock or the industrial.
So what did that to you? You got propelled into this techno scene. You suddenly got bookings within techno lineups. How did you perceive this, and were you welcome into the world of
with the first
techno police?
At first there was some pushback, and like in the first year, I had a few times like, you can't do that. You can't sing. You can't like wear sunglasses in a nightclub, and I had all that stuff. And then I felt like there was a tide turning, and people were like, they wanted me. Like one time I did a show without sunglasses. They was like, no, you can't take them off. You're Black Asteroid. And so I kind of, about 6 months into the first year, I became accepted as like who I was. And then, that was great. It was a bit rocky in the first few months, but it took me, I found a groove about 6 months in, and then, it's an interesting learning curve, but I have no regrets because I was doing something which was super popular. It was like 3 years later. I was just ahead of the time, basically. And there's no harm in just doing something different and pushing things. Anyone can play it safe.
I guess that's the definition of kind of blazing the trail and doing something. Yeah. Usually the people who are ahead of the curve are the ones that get the most shit for it.
Yeah.
And then once it becomes widely accepted, then,
you get forgotten.
Yeah.
By the way,
where did the name come from?
Are you drinking beer? What's
going
on?
Only for you guys. I'm not a beer drinker.
You're a wine drinker.
But I'm drinking a Brooklyn Montauk.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, I don't have a bottle with me, but it's a watermelon. It's an ale, session ale. I like British ales. But I drink beer, but I'm more of a wine connoisseur. But
Oh, I was going to ask. I don't know. Maybe you answered this before, but where did the name Black Asteroid come from? Is it just random, or is it?
You know what? I was thinking about that the other day, and I think it was Black Celebration and my fascination with space. I think I was just putting things together, and it was some
And the
Depeche Mode title.
fascination with black. I mean, judging by all our T-shirt choices tonight, black on black, right,
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, black on black. Everyone's black on black.
But that release on CLR was like the first release as Black Asteroid.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did like 3 or 4. See, I did a couple on Electric Deluxe, and then
And if Ali was with us right now, he would love to hear that information. I had Dave Clark remix that record.
yes, Dave credits me and you for getting him back into the studio.
It's true. Oh, true again. Dave was not in the studio, and we actually made him go back.
Yeah, we're like, you got to remix this, and he's like, I'm not doing remixes. Like, no, you got to remix it. Okay, so he remixed my first single. Yeah, it was like So we're kind of.
There was a pretty big entrance into the world. So how did you meet Mo, David, and Matt then?
I guess later through, I don't know if we met in like when I was doing the Gigolo stuff, Matt. We might have crossed paths through DJ Hell, but I think it all came together when I was doing Black Asteroid, more international.
I think we've bumped into each other numerous times at airports and all sorts of places.
Yeah. And for a while, people got us confused. They were like, a lot of people thought I was you. I'm like, what? I had that a few times, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Matt, I've actually had that people confuse me with you as well before.
Wow. Amazing.
And Matt and Brian, did you work together then too at some point?
But we've DJed together. We actually remember we played at this crazy outdoor gig in Italy a few years ago.
Yes.
With Speedy J with Yokin, I think, as well, wasn't it?
Yes, in the mountains somewhere.
And there was this crazy storm just before.
Exactly. We just got the gig. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's probably the last time I saw you, which I think was 2017 or something.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. Yeah.
Well, I think me and Brian probably met just through the CLR tours. I remember when you first signed the album and you started playing. I believe there was I think you were doing like a debut at Amsterdam at ADE Festival.
Yes,
we were all playing together.
Yeah, that was fun.
And man, we've had countless fun times on tour and playing, showcases and shows together, and it's been a fun ride. Always a good time when Brian's around.
I feel like this show has sort of got this CLR energy to it because it's like we were there in the beginning, obviously, and the connection that we all have is like, if it's not Depeche Mode, it's 9 Inch Nails or something like this, and it's like it's something that not a lot of the techno community have. I think it's kind of unique in that way. CLR was kind of pioneering this dark sound, but it was totally, it wasn't dark and like it didn't put you off. It drew you in, but it had this dark energy, which was awesome. And that goes back to our roots in the Mute records and all the records we grew up with. And I think it's great when you can mix that into like techno. I think we all share that kind of passion.
At that time, it was like the records were like 125, 120.
Yeah, all that space. There's so much of that space.
But like the CLR stuff was like the heavier. Back then that was considered like, oh, it's CLR. That's the heavy techno. Yeah. That's so crazy.
Well, I think also they were kind of rounding up to, the end of the minimal era, and techno was making its comeback, and there was a desire and a need for that, and it was just kind of the accumulation of the right time, the right place, and the right sound, and it clicked and it worked.
Yeah, so that was amazing. And I heard you guys talking before about some other DJs on CLR and how it all, unraveled or whatever. But I think it was like something about ending it at the peak was kind of cool as well. But there was definitely a void. There was a void for years after that. There was a void.
It was Mo's fault.
My fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault, man.
Our famous drive through the canyons, and I was asking, he was like, dude, I can't keep up anymore with all the work, with all the responsibilities. I mean, every one of us has run labels, and I'm sure Matt knows a lot about having responsibilities towards artists.
Yeah,
as
like
well,
looking
and
after kids.
You know, I think I'm a firm believer of ending things on a high note. You know,
Yeah.
and that leaves things it leaves things precious, and it leaves things easier to reminisce about and have good fond memories about in the future.
Chris, isn't CLR coming back?
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
I've signed actually the first 3 releases, and
Right.
Did you already
which is
say
not
what?
Hmm?
Did you already say what CLR is going to mean yet? I can't remember. I know this came up before.
Oh, I mean, I once turned it into Create, Learn, Realize, and now it's Create, Learn, Repeat.
Repeat.
See, repeat, because I'm going to do it again. And it's funny because when I first got to Switzerland here and I set up my little studio, I sat down and I actually just tested everything, that the MIDI and everything is working. And I made this EP, right? Like I basically in the first 2 days, I made this EP, and I thought, like, yeah, that would be a first release. That is pretty much the techno that I mean, I'm a pretty simple person, and for me, it just needs to have the right sound of the kick drum, the right hi-hat and volume, the right bass line, not too much fancy stuff around. Let's get rid of all the fancy schmancy stuff. Let's have it straight up, just every sound has its place and it just goes forward. Pretty simple, like actually techno that you could have easily done in the exact same way 20 years ago. I'm not sure if this is a good thing.
That's how I like making my music.
But it's pretty raw, and I believe, you could say like, okay, we had the chord, and that would be a question for Matt. I would have actually, I mean, you've worked a lot with chords, and we all techno goes through these phases, as we all know. There's acid coming up, and then everybody has a certain chord structure in his tracks, and then it's more melodic, and then the breaks are getting bigger, and then there's no breaks anymore, and I was just, I got to a point, and I think that was when Mo and I in 2015 had a long talk, and he helped me finding my decision to basically end on a high note. It was 2014 actually, because I felt like I've done it all, and I'm going to repeat myself. But repeating yourself, I don't think is like it's not a bad thing. And I'm sure Matt will agree. And I'm really, really curious of what Matt thinks, and also Brian, because I mean, you just mentioned your 16s baseline thing, and what I want to say with this is just I kind of learned that even if you have this kick drum, a 4/4 kick drum, a hi-hat and a bass line, which a bass line, they're as simple as it can get, because you don't want to go too melodic. It should just be like moving your feet.
Yeah.
And when you go so simple, it probably has been done before, a triple note, or something like this. But I've discovered that over the past 2 years, I got tired of it in 2014. That's why I kind of finished the label, and I started to concentrate on working more on album music and album tracks and stuff like this. But I've rediscovered this over the year of the pandemic, essentially, because I had so much more time sitting in the studio and working on music, that I discovered, like, oh, wait a minute, it's about the fucking details. It's like if you tune the bass a little bit more like this, and if you have the hi-hat a little bit more distorted like this, it just gives it a whole new life. And I felt the same way with Matt, your tracks with the you've just released it. I forgot the name.
The Variations one.
The Variations, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the chord structure is heard before,
yeah,
but not in this way, right? It's like not in this way, not with. Am I kind of making sense here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're all repeating ourselves in a way, but I mean, isn't all music kind of like a variation of something else? So, I mean, I'm not doing these. I'm not making this music for other people. I'm making it for myself, because I'm fascinated with electronic music. So I think sometimes, of course, I might copy other styles or things, but it's my kind of like homage to things, that have been done in the past. So, and then I try and give it my own twist. But I'm also fascinated, of course, like the chords that I used in Variations, come from Nitro Deluxe, which was then sampled by Inner City and then sampled by Dave Clark. And so, I was tracing back the sample and then seeing what I could do with it. So, that's it basically. And then, of course, I'm like a lot of all of us, I guess, sitting here, I'm just obsessed with loops, and making the perfect loops, whether it's a drum beat or, whatever. So, and I could just, do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, but I always felt like I was put off by the idea. Like I had something running as, just like I've done this before. But I've kind of got out of this, and now I understand. No, it's not you. Of course, you've done this before, but it's about doing it even better next time around, and doing it more on point. And better is maybe the wrong word, but more adapted to now. In a way, right? And that is so exciting. And this is why I felt I need to restart CLR now, because I kind of sense that in me that I can do way more of this kind of techno to regular, like non-techno loving person. They probably would think like, oh, that sounds like exactly, it could have been done 20 years ago. But in a way, yes, it could have, but in a way, no, because it needs these 20 years to get these details right. All that experience, all those nights in clubs, it takes that long. And I kind of got this passion back for this, and it was just so exciting. And then I found out about all these young new producers out there. Also, David knows some of them too, that are kind of maybe not repeating themselves because they're young and they haven't done it before. But they discover that sound and they give their own interpretation on it. And it's so exciting to hear. And I hear these demos and I'm just like sitting there like, I get the feeling that I had 20 years ago. And this is really good. So this is a kind of like what excites me about that.
But don't you think that techno needs kind of a rebirth? Because it's like it goes in these cycles now where it's so hard and so fast. I feel like if we don't do something clever, we're going to go back to minimal. Because everyone's just competing to go faster and faster and faster and harder and harder and harder. And at some point, it's just going to be like, start over, go back.
I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
I can see it coming.
It's just like it's going, the tempo's going like this. Yeah. And then people are like, yeah, this is great. And then like Sharon's got super big and like that really hard techno. And then that's when like
the bubble pops.
Doing the minimal stuff. Yeah.
So I feel like we're on the cusp.
But Brian, do you not think that the more performance side of techno is coming back as well? There's a lot more sort of singers or a lot more sort of live acts where
there are. I love it. Yeah. There's much more vocals and more of appreciation for that kind of thing now.
Because I mean, it almost felt to me like we are, or we could see a return to more like electro clash, like an amalgamation of something in between. Sort of 80s, sort of EDM or EDM, EBM, sorry, mixed with EDM, but just was just a pop sort of, even like Fisher Spooner, but of now, that kind of. I think maybe
people are probably hungry.
People want this. People want to have people want to be stimulated visually, as much as they do with music. So in a performance, so maybe that's going to come back.
I think so.
Just to add to what you were asking about techno, I kind of feel like this is one of the most interesting times I've seen for techno, because for once it feels like there isn't really like a unified homogenous sound to what's going on. I feel like there's so many different styles and so many things that people are doing, and it's actually kind of confusing. And there's the dudes who are playing like the ravey hard fast stuff, and then you have everyone who was jumping on the kind of EBM industrial sound, and everyone's kind of exploiting different facets of what techno is. And it's an interesting time for music.
But don't you think it's like most DJs don't intermingle all those sounds together? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, they
if you're
don't.
if you're like an EBM techno guy, like that's all you play. You won't really hear a EBM dude go drop in some Dance Mania, or
Yeah.
or a Dance Mania guy drop an EBM record.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? It's like that kind of, I don't know. I think that kind of sucks, but not that they do that. Just like I wish that
Yeah.
some more people did that.
Well, I think for the most
Maybe I don't
part, I
pay
think
attention enough either.
for the most part, I think also in over the last 10 years, I think a lot of techno DJs have tried to maintain this like unified
Yeah.
look and sound to what they do in
Yeah.
order to establish a particular brand.
You mean
You
the
know.
unified look of wearing black t-shirts?
David said it best one time, man. You don't wear black because it's popular. We wear black because I think it's a little more flattering to our body type.
I didn't say it that nicely. I said I wear black because I'm fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, when did that trend start really? Like I remember, like, if you look at pictures of parties from like 2012, 2013, people in the crowd were not wearing all black. It was just like, white t-shirts, blue jeans. And then at some point techno became like you have to like it just got immediately associated with like black clothing. It's like, when the hell did that happen?
I
can't
think
even
I
remember.
felt it happening when I was on CLR, and like all the DJs would ask me like, "Hey, how do I get this black clothes?" I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So everyone's asking me, how do I buy Rick Owens? I could feel it happening. And I remember Seth Troxler was also quite a pioneer at that time for the whole Rick Owens thing. And I think it was like around 2012, 13. People just slowly started wearing more black, and it was just
I find it kind of funny because like especially in the US, there's definitely like a rave attire, like with like EDM raves.
Oh
like,
my god,
like,
the Django
super
jeans.
colorful. And I feel like that was a very US thing. Like if you go to other countries, there wasn't really, people didn't dress up to go to raves. And now I think people do that now. Like when you like Berghain specifically, it's like, oh, you have to have, there's like a uniform for Berghain now.
I'll say this much. I do remember going to Detroit in the early 2000s and going to like Richie Hawtin's parties. And this is before he went full blown like minimal. And seeing everybody copy, him wearing the small black framed glasses he was wearing and a shaved head and wearing all black. And there was kind of like this kind of post-industrial kind of vibe to it a little bit. And that was quite popular in the Midwest for a while. I think if you ask anybody who lived at that time in the Midwest, that it started becoming associated with a techno look, kind of this minimalist vibe to it.
I mean, we have the producer of one of the biggest techno records pre-pandemic on the show here, which actually took on the idea of black on black.
Yeah.
Like you probably you thought about that, right? Making that track.
Yeah, I mean, I actually came up with that idea quite a few years ago, and then with working with Patrick, we just we were in the studio in France, and yeah, I mean, it's just a joke in Berlin, of course, like everywhere else, it's just the same, lines of black. Everyone's wearing black, everyone queuing up for Berghain is wearing. It looks like a funeral procession.
Yeah.
So. It can do, but so it was just a homage, little play on words on that.
There's that meme that where like there's all the people standing up front of Berghain, some ladies walking by and said, "Who died?" There's like a line outside. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Brian, did you go to, you're from Minneapolis, were you going to the raves back then in the 90s in Minneapolis? Do you know Zach?
I didn't know Zach at the time, but I went to a further, I think I went to the one that Daft Punk played, their debut, and I don't remember seeing them or even carrying
Well,
them.
and that's the one in there's this video, isn't it? I think
96, I think. In the farms of Wisconsin, and I had some exposure to that. Woody McBride, DJ ESP.
Okay.
He was kind of the guy in Minneapolis doing all the cool raves, and I kind of dipped in and out of that scene. But for me, musically, I wanted something a bit more harder. So I never really got into techno at that time. It just wasn't sonically where I wanted to go.
But was there like an industrial scene then in Minneapolis as well in the mid 90s?
Yeah, I think there was everywhere. It was kind of like Ministry and Nine Inch Nails were everywhere. Skinny Puppy.
Yeah.
And there was like this little community, and in the Midwest, Chicago. I lived in Minneapolis. I would drive 6 hours to Chicago every weekend
Wow.
just to be part of that world, because it was like I was making records with Di Warsaw and
Yeah.
the Ministry Studio and all that stuff. And that was that was the techno of the 90s. I mean, that was the cool shit. In the late 90s, like industrial music was like, that was the trendy shit. It was so pioneering and fun. Yeah, and in the Midwest, in the US, was where it kind of was at the peak.
The Wax Tracks era.
Yeah. I still
Yeah.
love that stuff. Yeah.
That was kind of my introduction to electronic music altogether.
Yeah, me too.
Was, I mean, even before I knew about rave music or techno, it was kind of just born off listening to Wax Tracks records and Ministry and Revolting Cocks and stuff like that, and you know, Nine Inch Nails and things like that, and seeing keyboards and drum machines, Skinny Puppy, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Front 242.
And then Frontline Assembly, I did a mix for them, and Chris remixed it. Well, I remixed it, he mixed it, and they loved it so much they put it on their album. And like, they made this original album, and they're like, they put our mix on there as a song, original song. I'm like, wow, that's quite flattering. Yeah, it's on their new album, our mix.
No, it's your record. I just mixed it.
Yeah, but it's on there. And then I had Bill, I had the singer Frontline Assembly. He's singing on my record, my new record. So I'm kind of like, and I've got some songs on my album with guitars and live bass. I'm trying to get back to that spirit of early Wax Tracks on my next record. That's where I'm going at the moment.
And do you feel like you're going to be too early again for this?
Well, I think I played that one song, and everyone thinks it sounds like Interpol, and I think that kind of sound is pretty timeless. I mean, it's like Interpol with a 4/4 kick. I think you can't really go wrong. Yeah, vocals. As long as the beat is there, you can kind of get away with a lot. No.
Was it Bill Lieb that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Kevin Key from Skinny Puppy on, and who was talking about meeting Bill Lieb when they first started Skinny Puppy. And I know that even Rise Fubar now is doing techno records, like on Adam X's.
Good records. I'm on Wiedergabe, the same label I'm on. He's an amazing producer. He writes all that Frontline Assembly stuff, most of it anyway. Yeah. He's quite a wizard in the studio, Reese. And he's in LA, right? Silver Lake or something?
I don't know, man. That's news to me. You're probably right.
He's out there. He's a great guy.
Did you ever start have your own label?
I did. I had a label called Pitch Black. I mean, I still have it, but I did it for a release because I was doing a record and I wanted to release. I could do it on CLR because the concept of the record was a leather 12-inch sleeve. I produced leather sleeves made from horse leather from a fashion label called Guidi. Guidi do these really high-end like leather shoes and stuff. And I did it. I DJ'd at one of their fashion events, and they're like, "How can we repay you?" I'm like, "Let's make a leather 12-inch." You know, it's like, how extravagant is that? So they produced by hand these leather sleeves for the single I did, Black Moon, and I then had a couple of remixes put into it. But I think, I don't know if I have it down here, but yeah, we made a leather techno record.
How many did you make of the leather sleeves?
I'm sorry?
How many leather sleeves did you make?
How many we made? I think we only made 20, and we sold them for like $200 or $300, and they sold out. Probably should have made more, but yeah, it was just to be able to do that. It was just kind of fun. I was doing all the fashion stuff at that time and trying to collaborate with everyone, and that was just something I thought would be kind of fun. Chris, I didn't even present it to Chris. I didn't even have the balls to.
As a vegan, I would have declined. But Black Moon is a great track, and so are many others that you've done. Like one of my actually favorites is also you did with Cold Cave. They're good friends of yours. Sun Explodes.
Yeah.
And I always kind of mix this into my sets, and the reaction of some of your tracks is just like if you mix them in the right times in your tracks is so outstanding. I always felt like some of your music was not like underrated.
Yeah.
Could you say, because it would not fit the current beatport style, maybe
Trend, yeah.
yes, or a certain beatport style. I mean, you guys were just talking about like or I agree with Mo that techno is at a really interesting point, but I think it's partly also because we are not in clubs and we're not at festivals. We don't listen to each other, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing right now. Although, and that would be my question, is like on Beatport there is a certain trend on Beatport. Is there? But the funny thing is we have two people here in this chat in our group with Matt and David who were extremely successful on Beatport over the whole year. I mean, Matt, honestly, how like there was sometimes like 5 records in the top 5.
Yeah.
And the other
Always.
5 records in the top 20, and the other 5 records in the top 20 were truncate records. What's going on? Like,
I think it has to do with that section, that raw deep hypnotic section. Like that seems to be like where the more proper techno is, versus the peak time section is like where that's like all the big drum code, ravey, melodic techno tracks. So I don't know why Records and Truncators is always top 100. It's I'm not sure.
You guys are working together, aren't you?
So
Manipulating the system.
It's like a payola scheme. I know how this works.
I think it's good that they split. I mean, I used to hate Beatport and the way and their techno sections, but actually now that they've split it up, it's better. I mean, I'm annoyed that they got rid of the left field house and techno. Now it's split up within UK bass and blah blah blah. But I mean, the techno genre was just being hijacked by loads of things that weren't techno.
Yeah.
So
trance.
Good save. Good save.
Yeah. So no, it's good.
But but what I notice is like, especially from like demos that I get from these younger producers, that I think like they're discovering the stuff from like the early 2000s, and then they're like putting their spin on it, which kind of makes it like, I don't want to say it's the Primate era, but like they kind of grab a little bit of that Primate era, and then they're putting modern production techniques on it and making it like a bit more funky. That's what I'm noticing.
Then throwing a trance melody right on top of it.
Yeah.
No, see that, but I'm talking about like the guys that send me demos, like the guys that I'm working with, to send me cool shit like that, where it's like they got some of the old vibe, and then they're updating with new production techniques, and like that's what I'm like, this stuff's dope.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I feel this is a really great moment for this kind of music, and I find this really refreshing as well.
Yeah, even though it's like it's refreshing, even though it's been done, just like we were saying. It's so funny how it works like that,
Yeah, and it's news to me. Like I never really thought that would be the case, but that is a really, and it makes me really hopeful. It makes me extremely hopeful for the future. But is that a certain style of techno that's going to be having its place again? And Brian, do you feel like the odd one out again, doing the thing that you're doing then? And how do you counter that? And or what's your idea about how this is going to go on? You have an album coming out. You have a release coming out tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, but it's gritty techno. It's pretty raw techno. It's something you could play anywhere and it would just go over really well. I made this record before COVID as just a raw techno record, going back to my roots, even like Motor days. It sounds like that. But the album I'm doing is quite different. There's, I hope that techno doesn't just jump back to where it was like this EDM circus, which is DJs with the most Instagram likes were headlining over here, and it was this and people popping up. And I thought like techno lost its integrity and its soul in the last couple of years. It just became like this circus, and it felt like what happened with electro, which became EDM. I was doing electro before it became EDM. I could feel it happening, and that's why I felt where techno was going. It was losing itself, and um, I hope we don't just jump back into that where you have like the same 10 DJs playing every party. I hope it goes back to the roots. So like we go back into the classics techno records that like David's making. Like I hope we can revisit where techno came from and then go from there. But that's my hope, anyways. You know.
I think the answer's in ourselves.
Yeah,
we've got to step forward and take the lead and try to release those records and move things in those directions. I think everyone's really hoping for a better outcome when this is all over, though.
Yeah, that's true. But we had an interesting group chat, DJs and beers in the past week, and I felt like we should discuss that on air as well when it comes to the algorithms and what social media is influencing techno to actually get or to lose its soul in a way, because you sometimes get more famous if you spend more time answering the comments in your Instagram post than sitting in front of your DAW and making music. And is that a problem that we're having?
Absolutely. I think I've commented on this before in the past.
Can you call that a problem, or is it just something that we're like old men just complaining about the young kids?
Yeah, the kids are the kids determine what happens, and they're attracted to the flashy social media thing, and they want to see the DJ with the who's all over Instagram and social media, and they draw a crowd, and I get it. That's how it works. But at some point you have to remember where we came from, what techno is, and if it becomes EDM, maybe we have to go back and start it over. And
but the new generation doesn't know what techno came from and what it is. Maybe. They think techno is what they see on Instagram. They're like, this is fucking techno, and I see it in comments all the time, like, yeah, techno, and just like it's become this like this kind of blanket term for everything.
I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything, and using social media in a clever way to promote your stuff is not necessarily a bad thing. I think maybe I'm not articulating this well, and maybe somebody can say it better than I can, but I'll say this. Music is subjective, pointless. I mean, what's good to me is shit to someone else, and what's shit to me is probably amazing to anyone else. So we can't really say what's good music and what's bad music, all that, but there is some sort of significant thing that I try to find in music is music with integrity and music that has zero integrity. And it seems to be like music with integrity always seems to be something that's purely creative and something that someone's trying to express internally from themselves. Music without integrity is always something that's designed as a product to put on a shelf, to sell to the masses for profit, and to, exploit in one way or the other. And I find that social media is oftenly used, and the people that benefit from it the most are the people who use it with no integrity. It's always about the image. It's always about how things look. It's always about the whole picture of it and how many Instagram followers you have, how many people comment, what tricks you use to manipulate the system to get more followers, to get more views, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is just purely to sell a product, to put at a festival, to headline another show, to make more money, to generate more income. And it has nothing to do with music integrity. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of us feel this. Maybe we don't have the words to articulate it properly, and we're trying to find all these different reasons why the system's fucked up. But it is purely just about the fact that we're seeing a music that we love, that we've been a part of for so long, be completely commercialized and exploited as a business on levels that, we've never seen before.
Yeah, techno was never a moneymaker for clubs or promoters, not really. And then it suddenly became, the EDM model got pushed on it because it became a moneymaker. So that techno went from like being the underground club you did on Saturday night for 500 people to like the 40,000 capacity thing. It just became, people saw money in it, and that's what happened. And now we're like living in this EDM world. And hopefully we can find a balance. You know, I think after COVID,
I think, you know, the best way that I could, for myself, that I can articulate this, and maybe this is aloof and kind of stupid, but I feel like, you know, like when you're in high school and you're part of like the weird group of kids that do something that nobody understands, and all the jocks and all the popular kids make fun of you for it. But whatever, you don't care how much we make fun of, because you're doing something because you love it. And then all of a sudden, all those jocks and all those popular kids are doing exactly what you were doing so long before. And they're the ones who are standing on the backs of something you've done and are getting, you know, all the credit for it. And then all of a sudden, it's just, you feel invaded in a sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like Brian, you, like, your background is in the industrial stuff. Like, I'm not super familiar with all that music, but like, was there a point when there was like the kind of posers that came along? There's like, what, they're making it more popular than what it was supposed to be. You know what I mean? Was it kind of the same thing with that type of music?
Same thing happened. Nine Inch Nails got really popular,
See?
and I loved it. I mean, I'm a huge Nails fan, but a lot of people in the industrial scene just did not like that at all. That it became so popular, and that, you know what killed industrial music? It was grunge. That's why Nitz Red suddenly, you know, Douglas got long curly hair and started singing like, you know, some Seattle band. It was grunge killed industrial music because it became popular. Trent Reznor made industrial music popular, and there's no harm in that. That's just a result of a process. And industrial music had the same thing. It kind of exploded. The bubble burst in the early 90s. Kind of the same way what's happening right now. You know?
Yeah, I think Mo put it really well. The spin that I would put on it is that I don't mind to that as many people as possible would listen to my music, right?
Sure.
Yeah. No.
Like I don't think anybody of us minds, but there's people who mind that. There's people who say, like, I only want to make music for like these few hundred peoples, and I never want to get my music out there. And that's where I want to tie in the point that I said earlier about some of your tracks. You know, they're actually really big tracks for me, but nobody seems to know them. Is that a matter of missing promotion? Is the promotion at the wrong point? Like, is there a problem of that? And to the point of what Mo was saying, I'm like trying to handle two different topics here in one time. It is like, I always found there's two different ways to make music: out of the motivation because you make the music that you feel and you want to get out, or out of the motivation to become as popular as possible and to make as many gigs or money as possible. And what's your motivation to make music? And I always felt like sometimes there is a number one in the charts where probably the producer's motivation was just like, I want to make this track, and it's a beautiful track and it's super popular. And some people would maybe say this is commercial, but to me it doesn't sound commercial, because even if it's a number one hit, but I feel like, I think the motivation of this artist was like, you know, you kind of can sense that. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
You can sense it if it was faithfully made just because the producer just felt like, I want to make this track, and there's some outstanding tracks out there. And how do they get popular, and how much more does promotion play a role? And promotion, I'm saying now, isn't that working the algorithm now these days? Promotion. So Brian, have you not worked the algorithm right? What's going on?
I've always made the records I wanted to make, and you know, some, like I was saying, some went in the top 40, and some, like Black Moon, that was a hit. But there was a lot of songs that didn't reach their potential. I mean, there's songs that everybody plays, but nobody knows who it is. You know, like everybody was closing their sets with Black Moon for like 4 years. And it's probably should have charted in Beatport like top number one or whatever.
You should have made more Instagram reels.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to make the music you want to make. That's how I just make these records, try to be original and do my own thing. And sometimes they hit, and sometimes they don't. But I'm never motivated by jumping on a bandwagon and making something that's going to help me get gigs. Because if I, like I said, if I wanted to do that, I would have been playing 150 BPM techno with little trance flourishes and rave sounds 5 years ago when everyone else was. And I made a decision to just to treat music as an art form. You know, techno for me is still about making art, and I don't. Yeah.
But if there was a way to make that art more popular by manipulating the algorithm in order to get the word out, to get more likes, to get more views, and if you were like, if somebody told you, dude, you have to answer all your comments, you have to write something and like answer all those comments, and then the algorithm will send out your post to way more people.
Yeah.
Would you just start doing it? Or thinking about what we spoke about earlier, that some of the young folks just getting into this kind of music, into this kind of techno, and that kind of happens a little later, because my daughters are 15 and 11, and they're not yet there yet. I think techno starts with like maybe 17, 18, 19, 20, a little bit more, a little later. So maybe we should like hire an armada of people who sit in front of a computer and just answer all those comments and explaining the people where the music comes from. So you basically explain to the people, and you work on the algorithm. This is just a stupid thought, but I wanted to get the perspective in, because Justin, our producer, since his season 1 final show, I think we should get him on, because he, I think, has something smart to say when it comes to algorithms. Shall we get him on?
He sees all the data in the background that's happening, so he definitely will.
He's probably
Hey, Justin.
What's up?
Good evening, Justin.
Hey guys, sorry, I wanted to make sure that the other guys can hear me this time, because like the last 2 times I came on the show, you guys could hear me, but nobody else could.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
The different stuff, but no, the algorithm conversation is like, I feel like that's always like the game. It's like, how do we beat this algorithm? How do we beat this algorithm? And people miss like a big part of the digital world, because the digital world isn't only social media, and so social media is a very small part of the digital spectrum, and when it comes to the numbers, like numbers are good as reference, it's there, kind of like I told you guys earlier. It's like, it's like the numbers are good to be like road barriers, kind of on the side of your road, and kind of gives you room to kind of bounce around in between, instead of being like, no, this is how you should run things. Because anytime you depend things on numbers is when things start getting thinned out. They lose the creative element to it once you start doing things based on numbers. So when it comes to digital, you can do the whole commercialization number part of it, where it just gives me likes, as many followers as possible. But there's also.
But hey, can I jump in for 1 second?
Yep. Go.
Don't promoters go after the numbers and book those people who have the highest numbers?
Absolutely,
that's part of the problem.
And that's a part of the problem, and to me that's a social shift, because to me society hasn't learned how to manage social media or manage this new element to our lives quite yet, and so they are very dependent. Because I know some promoters, working with some booking agencies where they don't know the artist, they don't know the music, but they'll go on, they'll see, hey, 15 of my friends like this artist, cool, let's book them, and like they know nothing about the music. And so there's definitely that element to it, but at the same time, artists also need to make sure that they're not falling into that trap. And it's like, we can do the likes and the followers, but at the end of the day, digital is about connection, and being able to find the people in the corners of the world that do like your music and do like your creations, and providing a channel for them to like your stuff, not just from social media, but now we're talking about websites, we're talking about emails, we're talking about Spotify and Bandcamp. Take your pick. There's like 50 million different platforms, but these are all part of the digital experience, and so how do you put these pieces together to make a journey for your fans to grow closer to you and about your art and your creations? Versus just likes. Likes and numbers are just very surface. It's very, very surface when it's not reality. Reality is it's people are interacting with you and your brand on 15 different platforms, in all these different places. So how do you bring those things together to stay in contact with your fans, but give them a channel to grow more intimate with you as an artist?
I wanted to just quickly, just to follow up on what I said earlier about this. there is nothing wrong with a massive audience of people finding your music. I don't have any issue with promoting your music. Like I said, it just comes back to whether you do it with integrity. I mean, look at Depeche Mode. Are you going to tell me on any level, from the amount of mainstream publicity they had and all their marketing, that they've ever took a hit on their integrity when it comes to music? I mean, you can't have anything but respect for what they've done over the years. So there's nothing wrong with reaching large audiences. I think it's just about how you represent yourself as an artist, how much you care about the art that you do, how pure your music is to what you do. And yeah, using social media is not a bad thing at all, but I don't see people utilizing it all the time in the best way.
No, absolutely, and they don't. You know, so it's like it's things will change, you know, and I think, you know, people will, you know, as we get more saturated with more content, you know, just flipping through Instagram, and we pay attention to the things that we don't like, but for whatever reason we pay more attention to it because it's kind of the weird psychology of it. But I think as people kind of learn to start filtering the content that they're intaking on different platforms, then you'll start to see that people do care about quality, you know, versus over just they have the biggest followers, you know. And I think that will take some time, but I think we're starting to kind of go that direction. I mean, no matter how saturated things get, there will always be a connoisseurism, you know, that kind of, you know, comes out of the noise. You know, so just the more saturated it gets, that just means that group of people who actually care about quality will start growing too. You know, so it's a matter of just putting yourself in front of those people, you know, and making sure that those people, you know, share about your stuff. So
What do you think, like, the next social media thing is going to be? Because, like, if you look back, it was like MySpace, then Facebook and Twitter, then Instagram, and I guess TikTok is like the new thing.
yeah, well,
It's new,
Clubhouse,
even though it's
man.
already a few years old. But
Yeah.
it, like, you know, it's like what's next? Is it going to be? I mean, I guess you can count YouTube now too, because
Clubhouse, man.
yeah,
Clubhouse.
But yeah,
I don't
but-
think it's going to be a thing.
No, absolutely, but this is what's interesting though. As a society, we're starting to get that perspective that that the digital world isn't static, and it does evolve and it moves, and like, you know, people are starting to come off of Facebook a lot more now, and so it's like now that people have that perspective, it's not just about Facebook and Instagram, because in 10 years from now we probably won't even use Facebook or Instagram anymore, you know, and so it's just a matter of, you know, having that transition. And then this is what I'm talking to a lot with the people I work with now, is it's not about the social numbers, but how do you know, convert those people into an environment that you fully control, you know, because right now you're talking about how do you game the algorithms, how do you do, well, those conversations will always exist because algorithms just change, new platforms pop up, you know, things just happen. You know, and so that's kind of a big thing that I'm kind of pushing right now is, you know, in the industry, which has been very hard, is, you know, focusing on the websites and your website, you know, and focusing on, you know, building your email lists and your phone lists and things that you completely control the environment, you know, so as, you know, your email list grows, you will always have those people to reach out to, versus, oh yeah, I gained 1,000 followers, but I can only reach 2% of them, you know, instead of always having that conversation. So it's, you know, how do you just build these audiences and convert them into a place that you can always communicate with them directly, and, you know, and always have that connection with them.
Matt,
maybe
how
that'll
much
be
time
like,
and energy? Sorry, how much time and energy, Matt and David, will you put in label-wise into promoting on social media?
I mean,
I don't do a ton of promotion.
yeah, we don't do so much. I mean, our distributor does a lot of it for us, and then of course I promote everything through my own channels, but that's all we can do, you know.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
again, it goes back to leverage. You know, how do you
Yeah.
leverage, and you know, these conversations like, oh yeah, we grow these followers, but we can't reach all of them. Well, that's the problem, you know, and that will always be the problem. So like, you know, a lot of people they make a post, but the lifespan of a post is what, a day, you know, and maybe, like I said, 5% of your people are actually going to see it. So for me, it's like social media are these little buckets, you know, but how do you convert those buckets to, you know, a data point or a way to communicate with that person forever, you know? So once that conversion happens, now you will always have that person to talk to. You know, because somebody might see your post today, they might not see the next one, but you send them an email, you send them a text, they'll get it, you know, every time. So
It's time to go underground and start email newsletters.
it is.
again.
Well, honestly, and that's no, it's true. I mean, honestly, and that's the thing. I mean, and it works. I mean, and that goes back to part of, you know, the underground was about DIY and do it yourself, and like, how do I manage this myself? But people are so dependent on third-party platforms right now in the digital space that it's kind of the opposite. Is you guys actually have no control over your audiences because they fall in other people's platforms, other people's, software and stuff. So, and now we're feeling the hurts of it because now we've been doing that for since social media started, and now these how do we beat this? It's like, well, you're never going to beat it. You have to get it off of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
because like with my label, I've never paid for paid sponsor or paid post, not once. I would post when something comes out. I would always just post links on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and that's it. And I mean, Bandcamp. The good thing with Bandcamp is when you put out a new release, whoever is subscribed to you, they all get that email.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, and when Mo made that comment, I was like, exactly. Like when Bandcamp sends an email out, you sell out. So I mean, with that being said, why you should be spending your time on building your own email list? Because even at the end of the day, Bandcamp owns that data, not you.
Right.
So and that's the thing. And there's Bandcamp, I get it. Like they provide a great solution for a lot of people. That's like super simple. But at the same time, there is technology out there that might not be wrapped in a music wrapper, but it's technology, it's software. That allows you to do the same thing. At the end of the day, it's about someone buying something and they can download it. They buy it and they download it. There's technology that can do that. The word that you would control all the data and everything. But that's the thing. Is just people don't really focus on owning their data, or their communication channels. So they're super dependent on everybody else. So
I think it's important for producers to know that if you want to have a successful career in the future, don't waste time going to music production school. Maybe you should go to school to be in online marketing.
Well, I dropped out of school doing that, and same conversation. I mean, by the time a curriculum comes out, it's too old. That information is long gone,
That's true.
I mean, we just, I go on Facebook one day and, we have a new ad platform, we made new regulation changes, and you gotta learn it. I mean, so I mean, some of the best internet marketers I know are, people who just are self-taught. I mean, it's kind of an art on its own, being able to kind of use all these tools and strategies to grow. And
you don't even need to go to production school. You got YouTube, man. It's like you can find every answer for everything on there. Like I learned Pro Tools through fucking YouTube. I had no idea how to use Pro Tools. I haven't used this. I mean, the last time I used it was like in 2002, and then like never touched it because like back then you needed like have special computers for that shit. Now I'm like, how do I do this? I go on YouTube and they show us. We're like, okay, cool. Now I know how to switch and zoom in and do all the stupid stuff with key commands.
From somebody who's been trying to make some money from teaching classes online, you're not helping me, man.
Well, and that's the other problem.
But let me add this, Mo. I don't mean to totally discount what you said.
I'm kidding, dude. I'm kidding.
But you do get a one-on-one with someone like you when you're teaching online class.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like it's not some guy just generally speaking to some audience. If someone has a question, they have to type a stupid comment and hopefully someone answers. Whereas I can just speak to you and be like, hey man, what's this all about? And you can be like, all right, cool.
Yeah. Well, that's another problem too. People don't value the content they make. It's like some of the stuff that the people just put out on YouTube for the sake of making content. It's like, this is very valuable information, that people would be willing to pay for, and that's kind of the whole game. It's, how do you make a little money? Because you do have to put ads out to get in front of people, unfortunately, on the social platforms, but you can't just do that for free. That's why it's not sustainable to just run ads.
So what? I mean, it's interesting because we have Brian on the show whose musical backgrounds are so versatile, and also the music you make, comes from different directions. What would be Brian's recommendation for a young producer these days that kind of has a similar, like, of course, there's lots of producers who exactly know I want to make that techno to become that techno DJ. But obviously, there's a lot of musicians or producers out there who want to make their music which might not fit in the current climate. What would your recommendation then be? Like also from anyone's point of view, like from your own experience, Brian, what you've done, or Justin, would you recommend someone like this go to an algorithm school and find out all about algorithms, and then make music whatever you want. Because if you get the algorithm right, then you can sell anything. What's going on?
I don't think you can plan it. I mean, I gotta say, like, all my biggest songs were like experiments or mistakes. You know, you can't really plan things like this. But I guess in today's age, talent and integrity are not part of the equation anymore. Um, so we're all trying to figure this out. But I don't recommend anyone making music with the intention of going viral. You know, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You know, you just got to make music that you want to make, that maybe it doesn't exist, and it's harder, but it's more rewarding when you do something like that. I know a lot of DJs who have ghostwriters, and they're living this lie, and you can tell, they can look right through their eyes, and they're not happy with themselves, but
Yep.
they're part of this machine, and it's I think you have to be able to live with yourself, and you have to make music for yourself first and foremost. That's it. And then if whatever happens after that happens. But I never looked at this as like how to monetize things. You just put your heart into it, and then some things stick and some things don't. But I don't know. I wouldn't recommend only making music that would go for the sake of going viral on social media, because it's a very hollow experience, very shallow, soulless. That's just my.
I feel like that's what a lot of people want to do these days now. Like
they want the likes. They want to see something go viral, and it's like this adrenaline rush that we all depend on in social media, and like a whole younger generation depend on that adrenaline of that constant feedback on social media, and you have to have those numbers. Things have to go viral, and that's their validation.
Dopamine addiction.
Yeah, well, that's also why we have huge mental health issues.
Yeah,
so it's like it's how things are now. But again, as time progresses, I think it's going to change.
And there's also a lot of very well-known producers who will also make music for younger guys or girls to jump through hoops. There's people out there, they'll do it for money,
Yeah, I guess it's a business. Yeah, some people benefit from that. They don't have showmanship, so they write music for the young, more attractive, more visual person. And it's a business. I get it. It works for them, and it works on the other side for someone who doesn't have 20 years to invest. Because it took me 20 years to learn how to make music, to make techno. It sounds simple, but it took me 10 or 20 years to learn how to make music. I mean, to really make the music that was in my head. And people these days are just skipping it. They skip that whole step, that whole learning curve, and that whole process. They skip it. They want instant, like viral headlining this festival, and they just do it. They do it in a year. What took us 20 years takes 6 months now.
Yeah.
But it could be argued that we're still learning as well. On always learning.
Always.
Yeah.
I think personally, like, I'm still like, I don't think I have like mixing down to a T, even though everyone says like, oh yeah, your records sound great, but I'm always still wanting to try different things and make stuff sound better. And like, this is after me to same thing, 20 years producing, and just like, I still don't think I have it down right, even though everyone says it sounds great.
Yeah.
So,
that's the art side. Always be better.
Yeah. And then, I had this thought earlier. So like, sometimes when I'm on my walks, I'm listening to either music or a podcast, and like, sometimes I get an idea for a track. And when we're talking about social media with the younger people about likes, I'm thinking about like, in my head when I'm walking, and I'm like, and if I have an idea for a track, my first thought is like, how is the crowd going to react to this track? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you just, I just build a situation in my head where I'm like, damn, I can totally see this working really well. Yeah. And I'm like, I wonder if younger producers or newer producers go like, I wonder how many likes I'm going to get for this track. Like, is there a different mentality? Like, I'm thinking of the party versus other people going like, is this going to make me viral? Like, what I mean?
There's definitely those people, and I can't stand them, but there's definitely those people, I mean, and it's again, that goes back to the generation difference, and you know, I mean, even for me, it's like, I mean, I've been hanging out around with you guys for the last year now. It's like, yeah, I've been, you know, DJing for like 12 years, but it's like, I'm intimidated to like, you know, do any music stuff just because of the wealth of wisdom and knowledge like in this group and stuff. And it's very, you know, again, just this last year has been very eye opening, you know, for me, and just, you know, learning from you guys and the history of everything, because people definitely don't, you know, pay attention to those things, at least in my generation. And that was kind of something that was actually really interesting too, because I was something just like me, Mo. I mean, all you guys. I mean, like, you guys have such drastic experiences and so many genres and sounds and experiences. Yet, for whatever reason, you guys gravitate towards techno. You know, as kind of the more mature development of sound, I guess you could say. I mean, why do you think that is? I mean, do you think, you know, that you're just able to focus on the subtleties more, or, you know, instead of, you've had all these opportunities to work on, you know, basically any genre or mainstream artists you've worked with, but yet you all have chosen this path?
I think it's based on our past experiences, like from going to these parties and that feeling from of the music. You know what I mean? Like we experienced techno in the beginning a lot different than most people do now. Now people are finding techno through their phone and listening to it. They're in what's the word? Consuming it in a much different way than we did. We're like, we had to go to the clubs to hear techno, and like you wanted to recreate that experience yourself, I guess, mentally.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what draw me to the music.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I have to say this. I think I'm in a constant search for inspiration. Always. Like, I'm always trying to relive that goosebumps on your arms feeling, no matter what. And you're just always constantly trying to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, because when you've heard everything, you're constantly trying to search for something you haven't heard yet. What the hell is that sound?
I don't know.
Is it your Spotify again?
Are you inspired?
We're not hearing it though. Last time it blurred through the speakers.
Yeah.
But is there a better feeling in the world when you're working on a song that you just love, and that's the high I live for. Is like when you're working on something, you know, it's special, and that's how you live for those moments as a producer. Like, you're making something, and the high of just knowing that it's so good, and that's why you should make music. But, you know, not everyone approaches it the same way, and, you know, it is what it is. But going back to your point about techno, I grew up, I mean, when we were pop music in the 80s was techno. I mean, Depeche Mode was techno. It's like, it's in our blood. It's something, it's a reference that we're born with. What I hear in the radio now, there's no techno. So I don't think everyone has that same reference like we did. But like the 80s were pretty techno. Not in a techno way, but that set us up for our ears to like be drawn to that, you know, those Depeche Mode synths and the dance beats and stuff. That's
no, I definitely resonate with the kind of the high you guys are talking about, you know, about like something new and refreshing on like this, like smallest little subtlety, and you're just like, oh wow.
I think I've always been attracted to refined and kind of minimalistic things, like even when it comes to films too, like even just sitting down and watching Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey 2001, you know, just the slow pace and nature of it, and the minimalistic changes and the slow evolving nature of it seems far more cerebral and just deeper than music that is always constantly providing instant gratification in your face, because it's just like there's just no room for all those little just tiny delicate kind of, you know, changes. And I think techno's always rang to me when I picture myself in a perfect environment. You know, you picture yourself in this complete dark room with a loop that's playing forever, just a kick and a bass line, and then the second that hi-hat kicks in, just the hi-hat, just like like right when that pumps in, and that's just what always just drives me and made me feel inspired about techno.
Yeah, isn't that the bit about techno? So sorry, Brian.
No, it's good.
Where I disagree a little bit with what David said. Of course you can listen to techno on your phone and everything. But isn't the real experience of techno also a shared experience with
Right,
a lot of people around you in a club?
Yeah.
And you have that moment, what you just described, Mo, the hi-hat snipes in, and you look around and everybody's just like, yes. And
that's what I mean.
It's collective, there's collective feeling. Because we had techno in the early 90s. We had techno on the radio in Germany. We had the club nights and all that stuff. And it was something that you were listening to, you're like, what's that music? But once you went to a party and you went to the club and you heard this and you were like, oh, right, now I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's that feeling that you when you're actually there, then versus listening to it on the radio or or tapes, mixed tapes back in the day. Yeah, I consumed music back then through tapes, but I also went to parties and I was like, I can hear a song on the tape and go like, damn, I bet that track kicks ass on a sound system, and I can't wait to go to the party this weekend and hopefully hear that track.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I was actually having a conversation with somebody about this last week. How it's kind of flipped because I mean, for me personally, like I came from a rural area, so like my journey to get into clubs and music's been a long one. But yeah, once you kind of experience that, it's like it's really like kind of pure and like oh man, I just lost my train of thought now. I just had a brain fart.
It happens.
It'll come back to me.
Just start dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You came from the rural area and it took you a while. Maybe I'll get you back on track.
You didn't have the dance experience when you were young. That electronic music.
Well, yeah, it was just just like once you found it, it was the people and the energy was just very engulfing, and just kind of like really sucked you in. And now I know what I was gonna say. And basically, we hear a song for the first time in a club, and then you go out and you try to find it, and then that was kind of always the pattern. But nowadays it's kind of reversed, where someone hears something on Spotify or something random, and then they go to their show, And so it's kind of like really flip. But at the same time, like the culture around those sounds are very, you're comparing the commercial to the underground, kind of in that element. So it's, I think that the club culture, will always be the big thing. 'Cause it's people always argued about live streaming taking over the club experience. I'm like, it will never touch a club experience like ever, and so it's just that comparison will never happen. So
I wanted to ask you, Brad, have you been vaccinated then? You had your vaccination?
Yeah, I actually have. That's the one thing, like I will say, I was frustrated the last 4 years under Trump. But I gotta say, after being like the country with the worst response to COVID, America is kicking ass right now. It feels good because America was always like a pioneer with science and in health and care. And I feel it again. It's like everyone can get vaccinated pretty much. And I had my first Moderna shot like a month ago.
I got mine yesterday or 2 days ago.
Which one did you get? Moderna?
Moderna.
Pfizer? Yeah.
Moderna.
So the second shot's supposed to be a real knockout, but it feels good that there's that there is there's a solution to the problem. Well, temporary. I don't know if it's a permanent one, but it feels great. So I'm halfway there, and next week I'll get my second second dose.
They said it was like it lasts like 6 months or something.
At least, because they've only been testing for 6 months.
Well, that's the thing. There's actually zero data on how long it lasts, and the FDA actually has reports on that saying like we actually have no clue.
So far, it's been 6 months, and it's it's still effective from 6 months ago. So it could be 12 months, it could be 18 months, it could be 2 years. We don't know yet. And
are you seeing like a change in the vibe in New York?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
people are. It's just like the whole city. I mean, where I live, it's just like the mood is elated. Everyone's just like, oh my God, like you can get you can vaccinated and you can walk around. These people still wear a mask, but it's just like that sigh of relief that there's there's a solution.
Well, you were talking about the light of the tunnel. The tunnels in Germany seem to be extremely long.
I mean, Germany was like one of the best countries. I remember we spoke at the beginning, and you guys were handling really well. And it was like,
well, let's say even maybe Europe. The tunnels in Europe are just so much longer than
your tunnels are over-engineered, man.
Everything's over-engineered,
especially here in Switzerland.
Yeah, I saw that France is going to go for another month-long lockdown.
Yeah,
Is Germany the same?
pretty much, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
till
they,
May?
they just prevented the super lockdown because they thought it would just completely kill the mood in the country. What mood?
It's been killed.
And so I'm literally like I'm probably 40 kilometers away to the border of France here, where I am. Switzerland is kind of the same the whole year. I feel everybody's kind of like easygoing. Everybody's wearing masks. Everything's sort of regulated, but there's no talk of super hard lockdowns, and it's kind of like the rest of Europe is pretty insane, and it's the tunnels are long. So
Is that because
I'm
of the
waiting for my
delay?
vaccination.
Is that because there was a delay to the AstraZeneca vaccine? Because
I don't know. It's just probably the bureaucratics or over engineering stuff like this.
Yeah.
While you Americans are more hands-on when it comes to this, you open stadiums, like let's just vaccinate everyone. Let's just go. Let's get as many doses in as we possibly can get. While in Germany, people were saying like half a year ago, do we really need that many doses? Maybe we could order half, and maybe then we look into it because we save maybe some money. And that's the issue.
Like the infrastructure. I mean, the internet.
Yeah.
you told the story about why there's shitty internet in
right,
in
exactly.
Germany.
Yeah. Well, that was a corruption thing.
Oh, okay.
but I'm happy to be here. But Brian, I mean, obviously there is light at the end of the tunnel, and the pandemic is coming to an end. Our season 1 is coming to an end, and as you heard in the beginning of the show, that for us the past year has been kind of like this therapeutic session as well. We meet every Thursday and we talk about all that stuff. And I mean, we're not talk show hosts, as everybody's noticed already. Have you had much communication with fellow artists over the year? Like we're in this beautiful place where we on a weekly basis could hang out with each other. Did you have a similar experience? Did you have people to talk to, or were you just basically in that basement for 12 months and we're the first people you talked to?
When I made music for like the first month or two, and then I completely got burnt out, and I became engrossed in this. I've been working in blockchain for a couple of years, and I finally got I'm certified.
NFTs? Are we at NFTs?
Well, NFTs is one of the things, but I got certified as an architect for blockchain, and then I got into this whole world, and I started working with this German blockchain company in Frankfurt. Actually, so that kind of took my focus off the gloom and doom, and it was kind of something fun to play with. So I had that, and then when I got tired of that, I went back into music. So. That took my mind off things, for sure.
Are you minting NFTs?
Yeah, my thing is I'm bringing physical art onto blockchain, like painting and things. I'm the digital NFT thing it's a fun little fad, but it's not exactly where I want to go. So for my album, I commissioned a painting for my album cover, and that physical painting is going to be broken up into 1,000 tokens, so my fans can own a piece of the artwork, and they can trade it if they want for a lot of money in the future, or they can keep it, or blah blah blah. I like those kind of things are really interesting to me, but I like the physical element of blockchain, not so much the NFTs as they are now. So.
For now.
Yeah.
super experimental. So.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that have they put techno songs as NFTs, and they try to sell one for like $200, and only one person has it. And it's like, that's not the right use. I don't think that's the right use of blockchain, but it's fun. I mean, it's like the early internet. People are going to experiment, and it's going to take a few years. Like blockchain right now is like the internet in 1995. Yeah. It's like before we had color images. It's so early. The evolution of blockchain. So I think it's really going to transform society in a lot of exciting ways. And my focus is the art side, the creative side. So I've been working in that field, and that took my mind off of the whole club thing, because that was a source of income where I didn't have that without playing and being able to DJ. So that took my mind off all that stuff. But
Hey,
yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say, sorry, I didn't mean to change the subject at all, but I know
Oh.
that we're coming close to around the end of the show, but I didn't want to go the show without asking you this question. But I know that you're heavily involved, somewhat involved in the fashion industry, and you have a fairly good relationship with Rick Owens. How did that develop?
What happened with Rick is I was watching a YouTube video of some of his shows, and I heard my music. I heard one of his catwalk shows, his new show. Yeah, I was watching it broadcasted. It was this song I wrote. It's a techno song. It's the last techno song I wrote for Motor before I became Black Asteroid, and Rick used it for the catwalk. So I wrote his PR agency, and they put me in touch with Rick, and Rick brought me back. It's like, I love all your music. Apparently he had all the Motor records. He had everything. And that's how I got into that whole fashion world. And after that, I did something with Ralph Simmons and Guidi and whatever. But Rick to this day is one of my best friends. I mean, that guy is amazing. He's really cool dude.
Yeah, it kind of caught me by surprise because one time even David and I had done a remix for Chris, that Alpha Nabin remix.
Yeah, he used
did
it
under his cell injection. And someone linked me to Rick Owens' Catwalk, and he was playing that track.
Yeah.
But I believe you gave him the music, right?
I think he probably got introduced to your sound, and obviously I introduced him to Chris's sound and CLR. He probably found all that through me, maybe, I don't know. But he's a music connoisseur. He finds everything on SoundCloud for all his shows. So he hunts for stuff, He loves that. I mean, I DJ'd at a few of his parties, wildest parties you can imagine. You have like horses in the club, and people like doing this, like throwing up and thing in cages, and it's like I don't know, but it's like it's the most decadent clubbing experience. And he's a clubber at heart. He loves techno. He loves to dance. So I think music and fashion. People always told me in the beginning, they're like, techno is not fashion, why you have to do this and why you have to look like that. And it's like, it is actually. You can't separate music and fashion. You can't separate the visual element of techno, like of music. It kind of goes hand in hand. Like a good album cover helps a good album that much more. I think the visual element is important, and
it helps narrate a story for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's what few people understood about techno and fashion, especially with designers like Rick Owens. It's essential. It's like it's married.
I think some people see all the color and fashion and are like, nah, that's not techno. It's like not enough black.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about earlier. It's like, when did that association with all techno and black happen? It's just
I don't know. I don't know if we're going to blame Richie. I don't know who we should blame for that, but yeah.
Because I don't remember it being a thing before until like maybe in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
I think multiple reasons came together. Like I remember that I once did a tour in Japan, and we were all at dinner together, and it was the pre-wearing black days, and I had various like funky shirts, like t-shirts with like prints on it, and I was basically sitting at that dinner, and they got out the promotion flyer, and I was wearing the exact same shirt on the photo shoot. and I was like, oh shit. And then I started thinking, it's like, what, it's so much easier just to wear a black shirt.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a practical thinking, it's just like I just switched over. It's just like, you don't really like, it's
no matching colors of anything. Yeah.
It's matching.
Black goes with anything.
It makes you focus on the music more versus your outfit.
Yeah, exactly. You took a step back in a way. You took a step back and let music speak more rather than your fancy T-shirt that you're wearing with some sort of print on it or something. It's more like, I don't want to be seen as much anymore, so I'm just going to put on a black shirt.
Yeah, it's like those clubs where the booth is like in the corner, and they're kind of set to the side, so it's just about the room and like that's
Yeah.
it.
So, Brian, someone in the comments, this guy Raynor Coker said something about sunglasses affiliation.
Oh yeah, so I designed some sunglasses while we worked on I worked on a collaboration with Valley Eyewear, these ones.
Oh,
And they're actually sunglasses, but I took the lens out and put these in prescription lenses. But I'm doing it. Yeah, we're doing a new frame for my album campaign. But yeah, it's just a collaboration, shared interest in Valley Eyewear are in Australia, and they're wild people, and they're like more rock and roll. Marilyn Manson did a frame as well.
oh nice.
So I'm doing this ongoing collaboration with Valley Eyewear.
Is any of the glasses you said it's released with the album? Like,
Well, this frame is called Black Asteroid,
ah,
and this one's we sold out 5 times, and we stopped making them now. So we're gonna do a new frame with the same title as my album, and it's gonna kind of come out at the same time, just because I love the physical element of music, and obviously everything's digital now, so I'm always trying to attach a physical thing to an album. And I can't, vinyl's cool, but people don't play CDs anymore, so it's like, and they can hold on to something now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Were these latest collaborations like on the more visual side, were these just because of post-COVID eras and these opportunities just kind of presented themselves, or was this something you're already into before?
I was doing this before, but during COVID, I definitely went back to my design roots, and I was definitely hunting for more collaborations. And yeah, I've come up with a few. I might even do like a scent, like a cologne perfume based on space, like the smell of a planet, or
I heard it smells like gunpowder.
the moon does. Yeah.
And so I think I heard an astronaut once say that it smells like burnt steak.
Burnt steak, acid rain, gunpowder. Yeah, I mean, I have a scent that smells like the moon, and it's an amazing smell. I mean, most of space smells like gas. It doesn't smell nice.
Yeah.
But there are some planets that are like metallic planets. There's some planets where it rains diamonds instead of rain, and like
Yeah.
I want to capture a scent of Jupiter or somewhere, and that's my next collaboration. I think will be.
How do they capture smell with the helmet on?
You can't. I mean, they just measure what's in the atmosphere with chemicals, and they try to recreate that. But when the astronauts came back and they said, yeah, the moon smells like gunpowder and acid rain. I mean, and that smells really good actually at that company.
There was an astronaut who was working on the International Space Station who was saying he would go out for spacewalks around the station to do repairs, and when he would come back into the airlock, when he would take his helmet off, he would get this sensation or the smell of what it was to be outside the capsule, and that he was the one who actually said it kind of smelled a little bit like burnt steak.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing.
Yeah.
That does smell good though.
Burnt steak?
Oh yeah, man, Pittsburgh style. It's a nice burnt crisp on the outside. It's like,
Well, before we come to an end, first of all, Brian, I couldn't have hoped for a nicer and better guest for our last show of season 1. But before I continue, just since you were almost on board from the beginning, what's your takeaway from our season 1, if you want to put it in some couple of words? Like, I've noticed that you sometimes after the shows you were like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So we were able to actually put in some history sometimes and context.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys, just living your lives, which is, as you should. But, for some of us younger folks and people who are, not as involved with the scene for as long as you guys have, music is a very present thing, and so to hear the history of how we got here, where things came from is very, I think, valuable for, people my age, and they should understand, because unfortunately at clubs, it's like, we're not talking about this stuff, we're not, when we're socializing, we're not talking about these kind of things. And personally, I mean, I don't know anywhere else where people can get this kind of insight, and so I think it's now on the internet forever. So, hopefully we can keep kind of building this up, and obviously we all have things going on and we have to move on with our lives, but I hope the storytelling and the history lessons don't stop. So.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's been an incredible year, man. We've had the chance to talk to people who've been huge inspirations for me, people who've never done interviews before, people who've talked about things that they've never had to talk about on interviews. It's been a wild experience. So many favorite shows that I've had over this past year, and also being able to hook up with you guys on a weekly basis, and then all of our bullshit chatting that we do during midweek that nobody reads has always been fun, and
thousands of messages.
yeah.
I'm sure those will keep going.
All the ups and downs the last year.
Yeah.
The only consistent thing was DJs and beers.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, man. Well, I just say, man, it's been great to talk to everyone and like interact with someone every week, like colleagues, people in the same industry, and just hear different perspectives from everything from the beginning to now, and living in different countries, hearing you guys' side of what's going on, and the stories, man. Like, I don't know. I thought they were amazing. Like I've only been partying since like the mid '90s. So like when I hear these stories about guys that are DJing in like the '80s and shit, and it's just like, damn, man, this sounds incredible. And like early '90s, I'm like, okay, I was like 10 years old in the early '90s.
I was born in '91, man. So like I was like,
So, like when they talk about like the hacienda in London and all that stuff, and it's like 1989, 1990, I was like, damn, man, I was like 9 or 10 years old. Like I had no idea this thing was going on at that point, so that's all was a big history lesson for me, and still and talking to some of these older DJs like Carl Cox, I love his energy, man. Like that dude's been in the game forever, and he's still like so excited, and like that was like probably one of my favorite shows. But everyone's been super interesting and great to talk to, honestly. Everyone. And
I think we might even need to have a reunion with Carl. I think he was one of the ones, and Danny.
Danny, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And we never had Josh Wink on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people we didn't get on.
Yeah.
Wink like hurt his back. I remember he hurt his back, and he's like, dude, I can't do it. And then all of a sudden he just never, I don't know. Sorry.
Excuses. But also, man, big thanks to all the people who tuned in as well over the years and watched There's so many people like in the comments section that have been here like literally every week for the whole year, and you see their names.
I see the same names a lot too.
We see you.
And that level of dedication is like, dude, that's incredible. It's such an incredible thing.
Yeah, it's cool to see how there's been some friendships that have formed via this chat. Some people like they start tagging each other on social medias and like kind of started a little community out of this. Yeah. So.
I don't think any of us have any idea what the future holds, but we may be back.
Yeah.
And for all you guys out there watching, keep watching. So convince us to keep going.
Like Mo said before, this was on our meet, and when we were having a little meeting, is like maybe there will be another lockdown and we'll be back here again.
Oh yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with this virus, but I think we're all looking at the first quarter of next year as sort of a return to normal. We'll see, but
yeah. So we thought the same time last year.
Yeah. So
or we'll be back to square one with the new variant, with the new COVID variants.
Yeah.
There's our cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Do we finally have a cliffhanger?
We have a sequel.
I mean, it's not. We're not saying it's the complete end of DJs and beers at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all. It's not the end.
It's end.
That's why we said it's end of season 1.
And the podcast is going out. This is the 50th episode.
So wow!
These next few months, we will be releasing 50 podcast episodes for everybody to watch everything.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in the comments who have not seen every episode too, and I can't even urge it. You should go back and listen to the podcast and watch the show, because there are some incredible moments with some of the shows that you might have missed. And there's a lot of rewatch value in this stuff too. So,
yeah, I want to give a big shout out to all of you guys. Thanks for for hanging
Thank
out.
you,
every
Chris.
week.
Absolutely.
It's
Thank
been
you, Chris.
it's been a huge honor
No more
and
beer,
a
but-
pleasure to hang
Yeah.
in. A big thanks to all of our guests. Obviously,
Yeah.
a huge thanks to Brian for our last guest of season 1. I think 50 episodes a season. We even beat The Simpsons. They only have like 30 episodes per season, right? So and absolutely thanks to everyone who's tuned in to this show, to any show, and especially to those who tune in like every weekend since the beginning. We know who you are, and it's really nice to see you always back again. And I hope you're not too disappointed that we're taking a break now. But after 50 episodes, I think it's I think a well-deserved break.
You're
And
due.
I'm sure next Thursday we'll all be sitting there. Why did we do this break? Why the fuck did we do this break? But as Mo said, sometimes it's good to stop on a high note. And Justin, thank you so much for your
dude.
help.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been an honor getting getting to know you guys, personally
Seriously.
in the last year, and look forward to the next year.
And we want to give a shout out to Ali, who hopefully safely arrived in Mexico by now, in Guadalajara, and plays at Bar Americas tonight. That's the cliffhanger. And the first episode of season 2, he will tell us.
He'll still be there.
He'll still be there.
So does anyone have any famous last words?
See you all on the dance floor.
Clever to say. Yeah, maybe see you on the dance floor.
See you
Hey,
guys on the dance floor.
maybe see you at a live DJs and Beers show. I mean, that's still a
Oh, there you go.
possibility too.
There you go.
We're not saying it's completely. Yeah, exactly. So that's another cliffhanger.
All right.
DJs and Beers live for sure.
With
And Brian,
I think-
first,
with real
thank you
music.
for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I think all of us are still fairly active with our own DJ streams and chats online. Sometimes I do my Twitch stuff. Sometimes so keep in the loop on our social media and there's other outlets where we appear. So
And speaking of, we need to talk about all that offline. So
He's almost set you guys up.
I'll hook you guys up. So
All right.
cool,
Well,
guys.
Thanks for having me. And
Thanks, Brian.
anybody who ever want to talk about space, I'm here. I could go talk your ear off on the vastness of space. And
Well, if you want, come meet me April 22nd down at Cape Canaveral.
Okay.
I'm gonna be down there for the SpaceX launch.
nice.
I'd love to talk to you about coming to the center of Jupiter and finding a diamond field as well. So
That smells like burnt steak.
Yeah, definitely.
So cool, guys.
Amazing, everyone. Thank you
cheers,
so much.
guys.
cheers, guys.
It's been a great journey. It's been a really great season 1. Thank you
Yeah,
so
man.
much, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank
you.
See you when we see you.